Away with this discovery tour and see what we can learn, if anything. No cat was mistreated by Loki during our story, except that one cat had his head kicked in. Poor kitty. Right, Ulrichstad. Shit. Let's see if there's anything we've missed. No, we've done that one. That's arrived now. It's cheap and nasty, but it wasn't cheap. Wasn't quite what they depicted it there. I thought it'd be a bit quality, but it's all plastic and blech. No, nothing new as of yet. Well then, let's continue. Yes, Norse leaders ensured loyalty from their allies and subjects by sharing their wealth and loot. To hold on to his power, a chieftain had to keep his companions happy. In other words, wealthy. Whether by trade or by war, Norse leaders needed to get their hands on loot and riches to distribute them. Oh, hang on. On loot and riches to distribute. Never mind, my brain's doing a thing. It's only just started. Great, we're off to a good start. And we should redistribute them to their allies. This was how they kept their companions in line. Do as I say, you won't get any swag. A sword like this one, which they hid behind stuff. Ooh, Museum of I need to go to the Museum of Denmark. A sword like this one might have been given by a wealthy leader to a trusted ally, or one whose loyalty he wanted to ensure. Give the sexiest things to your sexiest warriors. That's how it works, right? Oh great, I could be Colbert. The Great Hall. Built from large lumber and sometimes decorated with ship parts, a great hall or salle was a sight to behold. Who was it now? The Great Hall may have been its own building like the one pictured here, or a large central room in the chief's longhouse. The hall was at the heart of the community. Deep bonds were created, transformed and sometimes broken under its roof. The chieftain's house seen in this picture was reconstructed after archaeologists found remains from the 6th to 10th century longhouse. Ooh, nice. It is 83 metres long and 9.5 metres wide, making it the longest long ever found. Where is it? Of course it's in Norway. Really? God, it's Scandinavia. Can you tell? A, I want to see those fjords, and B, I want to see all this Viking archaeology. Because I've seen British Viking archaeology, but it's not the same. Not the same as being in the actual land.
Thorstein!
Yes?
We're far from our shores, but never my thoughts.
Oh, that's good to know, Harold Finehair.
There's something I must say, my Jarl.
So formal. Did the crossing scour our friendship from your mind?
It did not. It's only by friendship that I am brave enough to speak.
Tell me then. I'm listening.
I tire of raiding Harold. I want to settle where there's rich, dark.
Do you not want to go to Valhalla, Thorstein?
I want to make a place of our own where I
Smoke?
can live out my days with my wife.
You're young yet, my friend. Plenty of time to grow old with a bouncing infant on each knee.
No, my
You're only
I've
43.
delayed too long already. Today I search.
Or is he 12?
I have none to spare.
Then I shall purchase.
Or 20?
Commission.
So that one
perhaps.
joke from
I
Kingdom
hope
Come
this
Deliverance.
folly of yours can withstand a year's wait.
The zero punctuation.
That is what it takes.
He's supposed to be. He's supposed to be a boy, but he
It
looks
is
like a
no
strapping
slight
young
to
man
you,
in his
my love.
20s, or as it was known
My
then,
love for you
middle
has
age.
not waned, but my love for my wife only grows stronger with each absence. I hope you will bless my journey in time.
Go.
Go, piss off. Yes, piss off. How's that characters we found more about? Ooh, I can play as them. Yes, I want to play as that woman that did the other questionable things. Eivor. Eivor. I'm currently playing through the campaign with female Eivor. Just wanted to. Soma. Not done that one. Basim. Fulke, or as I call her, Fulka. Hatham. Not Kenway. Odin. Ivar the Boneless. But he's not... oh wait, that's the Vikings. Never take anything that the Vikings TV series says as fact. Though I'm currently doing... I'm currently working on an essay for the Viking period, and it's the... I think the question is, they're the most stereotyped peoples that we know of. What archaeological evidence do we find that backs that up? And I'm like, very little. Well, we do have evidence of the whole crazy Viking raiders murdering people, but then you have to think about where the sources are coming from. It's a Sean, so better shush. Level design. I really don't like this. Make him do all the others at least. That would have been a fine balancing act. Because all the behind the scenes stuff in Odyssey, which I still need to finish the Discovery bits on that. Like all of theirs were all read ones. It should have either been they all are read or they're all spoken, not half and only the Ubisoft one. Fucking Ubisoft. Anyway, Ubisoft are cunts.
As longhouses were at the centre of Norse communities, it was only natural that they'd be at the forefront of AC Valhalla. Just like any true Viking, Eivor hosts feasts, plans battles, and sleeps in her longhouse. But what about
see, they made the she version common. I think it is canon, I believe.
First took a scouting trip to
I believe female Eivor is the default.
To immerse themselves in the land and bring back references. And chocolate. From these pictures, modelers and artists designed variations of paint patterns, carved animals, frescoes, and so on, for players to enjoy and use to customize their settlement. Anglo-Saxon longhouses, on the other hand, were designed with different materials, such as hay and lime, and less detailed engravings. Can't have them steal the show.
If I find that. Okay, so they've come up with a canon explanation. So female Eivor is the canon version, but because spoilers, if you've not finished it, because Eivor is basically Odin from a previous the previous special people, whatever their name were, precursors. I don't know, the pre-peoples, the god peoples. It's why you get the male version in the Animus. But don't forget, this is the first time you could play as a woman in Assassin's Creed, apart from, you know, the others beforehand. Like Odyssey. Which was actually, no, Odyssey was the first one. Or was it Syndicate? Or was it Origins, technically, because you play as his wife for a bit. And maybe Liberation as well. Just saying. Just saying, Ubisoft. Piss off. I mean, just to great, get coughing fit just then. Just to re-clarify it, the people who actually make the game, the developers, not got an issue with you. It's your CEOs I've got issues with. We all know what they've been doing. Ooh, Ulrikstad. Near the Bay of Vargen was a great estate on the southwestern Scandinavian coast. King Harald Fairhair likely used it as a base from which to watch over the sailing route of the North Way, and now it looks like Balamory. Although at least I'd rather live in Ulrikstad than where Balamory is supposed to be set. Is it Morecambe? I don't know. I like to live in Scotland, that's for damn sure. Scotland's got some nice vistas, but nah. Anyway, the North Way was an important route. Whoever controlled it controlled trade with the power of the money. By the end of the 800s, Ulrikstad had become the seat of royal power and was the starting point for both commercial and military expeditions. The design of Ulrikstad in Assassin's Creed Valhalla was greatly inspired by Bryggen, seen here, a historic harbour district in the modern city of Bergen. It's more tasteful. It's just yellows and oranges and whites and reds. It's like a sunset. I think that's the idea, isn't it? A sunrise or a sunset, isn't it pretty? Better than all the garish colours of the other one. Fucking Balamory. There's no more stories of Balamory. Show got cancelled, eh? Horsemen. Medieval Scandinavian religious expression included day-to-day ritual practices, ancestor worship, rune magic, dream interpretation, and more. The Norse believed strongly in fate and destiny. Destiny! Unlike the Christians, the Vikings did not have a clergy, a select group or institution who presided over religious rituals. People of different ages, genders and backgrounds could officiate Scandinavian ceremonies. Private household worship of ancestors and gods like Thor, whose hammer is pictured in the runestone. Oh, that there, you mean? That giant dangly penis thing, yes. Was supervised by the head of the family. Public events and the rituals could be led by community chief or Jarl. Sigmund Jarl, my friend. Good old Vikings doing the job we're doing, running around killing Saxons, but not in this game, or at least not in this version. That time will come. Taboos on the high seas. A sailor's world was filled with taboos, topics or behaviours considered offensive or profane that could bring bad luck to a sea voyage. I think that's how it wasn't through this game, it was through, I believe it was, Exploring Celtic Mythology by the Explorers channel. The one I like to big up quite a lot. The one he did like Star Wars. I think he's currently still working on the SCP one because he's got loads of the SCP one. Does good jobs. He did one on the Celtic mythology, and I think it's about the tale of Cuchulainn and how he breaks the taboos by refusing. It's what is it? Don't eat dog meat and refuse hospitality. They're apparently two social taboos you're supposed to adhere to, and basically he gets tricked to break them both at the same time. Or he breaks one of them anyway, and he loses half of his strength or something. It's Irish mythology is very, very weird, but very, very awesome. It's much like the Norse, to be fair. Anyway, a good way to ward off bad luck on an expedition was to be familiar with all the taboos before setting sail. Don't piss over the side. Don't drink the water. Especially after you've pissed over the side. Along with other maritime skills, lessons about taboos were passed from father to son, from fisherman to fisherman. These bold or foolish enough to ignore their elders' warnings and risk the wrath of the gods could end their journey much like this unfortunate crew. Oh, shit. I don't know who that is that's down there. Oh, I'm going to reenact that scene from episode 2. What? I do like some of the artwork as well. Again, given them that, the artwork, the art direction, the music, apart from graphical glitches aside, some of they did a good job. It's just a shame that your CEOs are a bunch of bastards. Mind you, CEO, as Serge Tankin once said, CEOs are the disease. Fuck, let's figure it out. Beware of the noise traps.
Creating an immersive world also includes the sounds triggered when Eivor interacts with her or his surroundings. Shown here are coloured surfaces that play a specific sound when the player walks on them. Yes, every item with sound and animation is labelled in the game's engine. A brown square indicates a wooden sound, probably because wood is brown, I'm not sure. While yellow squares signal a fabric-like sound. When the player walks on or touches one of these hidden squares, the noise it's linked to triggers automatically. But there's another side to this coin, and it's a sinister one. With this system, developers were also able to create noise traps that can reveal the player's presence to nearby enemies.
Yeah, because they do that whole, oh, what was that noise? I mean, that's nothing new. I mean, look at... I suppose if I listened to, like, I don't know, Metal Gear Solid's development, especially for 2, they'd probably say the same thing. Let's go over here. Whee! In the North Sea. Oh god, I'm thinking of knocking the knock now. In the land of the North. Just as one might refer to a project as one's baby, my baby, to build a boat was akin to having a child, except without the painful birth. After construction finished, the ship was ritually named and blessed. Ships were awesome. The keel pictured here was the backbone of the ship. According to legend, there was a christening ritual for boats called blooding the keel. The term seems to hint at some kind of human or animal sacrifice to please the gods. However, it was likely just a metaphor. Metaphors. Metaphors and similes were often found in Norse poetry and legends. Blooding the keel may have meant getting the ship's feet wet, or putting her to water. In the water, fair enough. Oseberg Viking Heritage Foundation, Tornsberg, Norway. Isn't that where the boat in the actual Viking boat is in? Am I thinking of... was that Oslo? That might be Oslo. We'll probably find... well, no, I don't know if you found it in the last part, because it's been a while since I've looked, but we'll find it again. It's kind of cool how it was that they were digging... What was it they were doing? They were... what was it recently? They've done some radar scans, and through this ground penetrating radar, they've found more ships. And I can't think where it is. I think it's in Norway. But it's like, Jesus Christ, they're buried everywhere. The Longship, or Langskip. The Longship contributed enormously to the social and commercial, political, social, economical, philosophical, all the oracles, expansion of the medieval Scandinavian peoples. Its construction itself was a technical marvel. It bloody was, it's fucking awesome. To board a longship, one first added the keel, the backbone of the ship, to the hull. The hull was clinker-built, its planks overlapping each other like fish scales. The boards were fastened together by metal rivets, then corked by hemp and horsehair soaked in tar. This ensured that the water could not soak through the hull in the middle of a voyage. Hooray! Next, the mast was attached to the hull by a fish-shaped piece of wood. This ensured that the sail along the mast did not resist the wind, but moved with it. This adaptability, when coupled with the flexibility of the ship's hull, made the Langskip elastic rather than splitting the waves. It slithered through them. And then shallow drafts. That's how you could get one of those boats up a river, because they weren't... unlike some boats where they're... I don't know. You can't exactly drive a ferry up the Thames. Or can you do it up the Thames? I don't know. Up the Avon, then. You couldn't ferry one of those up there because its bottom's too big and it needs enough water underneath it so it won't scrape across the floor and fall over. But with a Viking ship, as one can see here, that's quite a shallow draft there, so the water would be about... oh, I haven't got anything to aim with. Sort of where that rivet is, it would be roughly around there, and it would go right past there. Like, literally all across the top part. They look so good. The relationship between sailors and their ships was special and emotionally weighted, much like the bond between a horse and its rider. Good horse. Good boat. More than mere tools for transport, ships represented gateways between worlds. Ancient Scandinavians believed that ships straddled two different worlds, for they were built on land but lived at sea. Symbolically, to sail was to have a foot in two worlds, not just land and sea, but also life and death. Well, yeah. To be on a ship was to be in a liminal in-between space between life and afterlife. Ships, whether wooden or stone, symbolised transition. This is likely why they had figured heavily in Scandinavian burial rites, or rituals even, since the Bronze Age. Yeah, that makes sense. If that's how they viewed it, that's why you get so many of them buried in either, if not actual boats, they're buried in those stone-shaped ones. I think there's a load of those in Ireland. I think I know that because I've played the Island DLC. Never finished it, because the game glitched and wouldn't let me continue without me restarting the entire game, so I just gave up. Then got the PS5 version and thought, I'll just do it on there then. Hopefully it won't glitch again. It was annoying because I'd done pretty much everything else. I think it was just the Paris stuff and the island stuff I hadn't finished. Anyway, curing fish. Of what? Life. Alright. While it is true that Scandinavians were renowned warriors and merchants, they were first and foremost sailors and fishermen. Most of their food came from the sea. Considering most of their settlements are by the sea, that makes sense. Oh, look at the fishes. Fiskar was mostly consumed after it was dried. To dry a fish, one simply placed the catch of the day on a wooden frame and let the sun and fresh air do the rest. By the end of the day, the fish would be dried and ready to eat. Ugh. Not sure how I'd feel about that. Mind you, wouldn't have a choice, would I? Not got many left for this one. Yeah, they're all around here anyway. Not going to come across the Sons of Ivaldi, are we? Maybe, who knows? A longship was fashioned from several different kinds of wood. The quality of the lumber determined where it was used on the ship. So if it's crap wood, it's not used. The hull of a longship was mostly made from a hardwood tree chosen for its solidity even. The hardwood was carefully split along the grain with an axe to make the boards flexible. The mast of a longship was made from softwood, which offered not only flexibility but length. The trees used in building longships varied according to region. For example, oak trees were common in Denmark and were likely fashioned into longships in Norway. Ash or pine... Oh no, sorry. Fashioned into longships. In Norway, Jesus Christ, look, I really need my ass tested. In Norway, ash or pine trees would have been used instead. This reconstructed ceremonial longship offers an excellent example of a typical hull and mast. We've seen plenty of them, but here it is again. Does look cool though. I like the ship head. It's a Jormungand, or just a snake. It's just Jormungand's the only snake I'm aware of. Oh wait, no, it wasn't. Oh no, maybe it wasn't. Wasn't one of the Loki's punishments to be chained up underneath a snake that dribbled poison onto him? Or was it meant to be poison from the world serpent that just dripped through a cave? I've no doubt a certain word will tell us. I can look it up, I suppose. The sail was an iconic feature of a Viking longship. Often crafted by the women of the clan, they were made of wadmeal, coarse and dense wool. Of vadmal even. Sails were felted to make the material more resistant and waterproof. Hurrah! The Scandinavians first began to use sails on their ships in the 7th or 8th century, where once they relied solely on oars to move their ships across water, they now introduced the famous squared sail depicted on this runestone. That's a pretty square sail there. Along with these other things like this tiger, this leopard carrying it, and whatever this is up here, and it looks like an elf warrior from Lord of the Rings. He was inspired by Norse mythology, so... Anyway, there are several possible reasons for the addition of sails. Their introduction may be linked to an increase in wealth and land among Scandinavians. A person would need a lot of vadmal wool to make a sail. This meant that it would need a lot of sheep and possibly land for grazing. Therefore, those who own sails likely have access to a lot of wealth and land. It's often the case. It tends to be someone who foots the bill first and then then they get the bigger cut or something. I think something we learned last time. Oh god, here we go.
Now, you can't make a Viking game without an awesome longship. It's the law. After all, Norsemen are renowned for their boat-building craftsmanship to this day. To do it justice, modelers in Montreal built the dimensions and shapes, while artists in Singapore created 48 different variations of longboats with stunning designs inspired by Norse mythology. The outcome speaks for itself. A slick, clinker-built hull for hydrodynamism, shallow keels to sail in low waters, and even a removable mast to pass under bridges. Now set sail, and may you have fair winds and following seas. Don't forget your sandwiches.
My Britenval. That's probably not even a word. Brood. That's Dutch for bread. Still remember that? I've not touched what's it for a while now. The oh God, what is it? Still installed on my phone. Duolingo, that's the one. Scandinavian ships were famous for their figureheads. Found at the prow, the carved heads were meticulously crafted from a single piece of wood, and they were gorgeous. Oh, it's the same one again. I mean, look at all the carvings on it, though. Ooh. Figureheads, as seen here, were often sculpted into wild animals or monsters. They were not just decorations, they were intended to frighten the protective spirits or landveter. Landveter? Landveter, I'm going to go with that one. Of hostile territories. When Vikings wanted to ensure a successful military or commercial expedition, they showed the ship's figurehead as they drew near the shore to intimidate the landveter, whatever, of their rivals and enemies. When they were visiting a friendly territory, the Vikings did not want to offend or frighten the local spirits. On these occasions, they would remove the figurehead from the prow for a less threatening arrival. Yeah, they were literally like Lego. They could just lift it off and put another one on. It's great. What isn't Lego's from Denmark, isn't it? Or is it Sweden? Hey, do you want to talk? Oh, I had to go on a specific side of the bench.
I need a ship. My wife and I leave for the land across the sea.
Harald won't pay for such a vessel, I'm sure. Did you really fill your pockets that well on your last raid?
I have gold enough to cover the cost.
Yeah, Denmark.
Wood,
Yeah.
sails, and all?
Gunhilda's family will provide the sail. The rest I will purchase.
Ah, you're a lucky man.
I know.
Speak with Skarga for a pine mast then, and yarn for the nails. Tell him I'll expect him to be on time with his deliveries in the future.
I'll see what I can do.
Haha. Dad, we're gonna go searching for things.
Thorstein, what brings you to my yard?
Imvolder sent me.
Oak or pine?
I'm sorry, what?
New to shipbuilding, are you? Come with me. You'll learn better by doing.
Hooray, maybe I will.
Use that axe to remove the bark from this log. Underneath you will find silken pine, flexible and light, that will bend in the wind. Perfect for a mast. Once you have a sense of the wood, come find me and I will show you another.
God, the voice acting's awful. It literally almost sounds like they just slapped the words into Google Translate and said, do that. That'll do. I did it. Then you take the hammer and you
Tap
break the
just
wood.
gently. We want this log to split as straight as possible. That way we will have long, hard boards of oak for the hull of your ship.
Why are they so bad?
I'll wait for you over there.
You can literally hear the gaps where Google Translate does do that. You must find a way into the sea of the computer. Awful.
Planing the wood ensures a tight fit between the boards, leaving no gaps or knots that might give way in the middle of the sea. The smoother the joints, the smoother your journey.
Oh really? The smoother the journey. Good to... Right,
Now, which type of wood did Imvolder send you for?
he wanted the wood...
Pine for a mast.
I'll send a new mast to the shipyard as soon as it's ready.
I will send it to you in a jiffy.
And they're going to bring it all the way from Ekundersund?
Definitely not.
The clan. Several households who come together to form a clan. A clan? A clan or Aet. These bonds could be cemented via blood relations, marriage, or by an oath made during a legal assembly. The name of an Aet would often be constructed by putting together the names of a notorious forefather, sometimes even a god, with the suffix ingir, which invoked a sense of social belonging. Some clans had as many as 100 individual members on whom they could rely in times of peace or war. Pictured here is a clan made up of members of the Assassin's Creed Valhalla development team. They are feasting with reenactors from the Loftier Museum in Lofoten. Lofton. That's how British I am, I can't even pronounce words. Lofoten, Norway, yeah. Oh, that's cool, I'd like to do that. Well, gee, thank you for the
They
data.
complained about the food the whole time.
Have you told them of your plans to...
Well, how did it go with Harald?
Harold will not stand in our way, but neither will he help us.
Oh, at least he could give you his blessing.
He did not.
Oh,
He
my
was a
love.
miserable old
He
bastard.
will come around. His love for you flows deep, but its pull is as strong as the tides.
I see you've made good on your promise to find us traveling companions at least.
This group of good-for-nothings, they're only here as ballast.
Ah, then finer ballast I've never seen. It's a good start, but we will need more men.
And the navigator. I know. I've gathered a list of names already.
Ah, my Leverstjarna.
But before we do that, we've got to get some nails from Yarn, the blacksmith. Where's the blacksmith? Where's the blacksmith?
Are you looking for something?
Yes, I was going to jump into your fire there.
Invalder sent me.
Of course he did. He tried those nails from Avaldsnes, and I bet they fell apart in the salt water. I use nothing but pure iron, which is why he hates my prices. But at least you won't find yourself suddenly sailing in a bucket full of holes.
That sounds
inside the
better.
shop. You can take a box from the stack against the back wall. But tell him he'll have to pay up front if he wants more.
I'm the one funding the construction of this ship. You will be paid in full.
I have no doubt. Eventually. Imbaldir makes ships that sing on the ocean waves. But mundane thoughts of silver and debt never seem to enter his mind. Don't worry, I'll talk to him. Go get your nails.
Oh, thank you very much for me box of Sharpies. Where's my box of Sharpies? Oh, it's over there. Come to me, box of Sharpies. Run away! Run away! Blump.
Finally you return. Now, there's one last step to take. Come with me. Which animal would you like best for your prow? I have 3 available, so you can choose the spirit that suits your intentions. You will also need to bring me a blessed charm to put inside the prow. But I won't need it for many months yet. Take a look
So don't have to
and
bother
let
with
me
that.
know if you have any questions.
So what do we have then? Elk. Oh, they're all there. In Scandinavian culture, the elk was a wild and noble animal. The elk was linked to the supernatural and populated many legends. The elk's antlers both resembled tree branches and were symbolically connected to them, just like leaves. The elk's antlers would fall each autumn, only to be reborn the following spring. This association with the cycle of life also appeared in the Algiz, the rune of life, nicknamed the rune of the elk. Legendary among elks were Elkthanir, a magnificent beast that stood on top of Valhalla, Odin's hall, that housed the glorious dead. Well, just stood there and was like, "Bah!" Waterfalls and rivers were born from his impressive antlers. They must be very big. Elks and other cervids? Didn't know that was an actual family thing. Anyway, like reindeer, commanded a lot of respect and spiritual reverence from those who lived long after the Viking Age, as this Neolithic engraving shows. Or before even, never mind me. Well, and after, I'm pretty sure, but, you know, oh, look at that. Scandinavian Neolithic. He's a big moose. No, it's a deer. He's got a little smile and he's a happy boy and he's about to get murdered, isn't he? Because that looks like a spear end. The snake. Ancient Scandinavia, snakes along with other legless creatures were not considered to be animals. Rather, they were seen as their own category of beings. Oh, they did have snakes then. Snakes were well represented in Scandinavian magical, mythical and spiritual beliefs. They were often associated with depths. Under the ground was Nidhogg, a snake that strove to devour the roots of Yggdrasil, the cosmic tree. Oh, that's why those things in Devil May Cry 5 were called Nidhogg. And had, like, snaky qualities. Under the sea was Jormungand, the Midgard snake, which, biting its own tail, encircled the ocean until the day it would release the waters, beginning Ragnarok. It was not uncommon for these monstrous snakes to pass into legend as dragons. Snakes were among the most popular creatures depicted in Scandinavian art as soon as seen on this runestone. There's his little face, there's his little bum, and there's all around. This one's quite a common image, I keep saying. Is that one. The horse, nay. Ah, okay. So if you've not read them, they stay black and white. I think. We'll find out when I've... I still love that one. The bees! Yeah. They stay black and white until you read them. Use that as a way to check we've read everything then. I was just back on my photo. I was saying, could have sworn we'd read that one. Anyway, back to the horse. Horses were known for transporting people and goods. Oh, it's black and white anyway, never mind then. Scandinavians also granted them the power to move between the worlds of the living and the dead. Sleipnir, the man of Odin, would carry the All-Father between the worlds. This was why, in Skaldic poetry, connections were drawn between horses and boats, which also represented gateways between worlds. Horses were occasionally depicted on runestones as a mount for warriors, divine or human, much like on the runestone depicted here. It holds the engravings raised by 4 men named Björn, Vebjörn, Hrafni, and Keitelbjörn, in memory of their father, Gearbjörn. Was that Great Björn? Is that Björn the First, Björn the Second, Little Björn, and Great Björn? It probably is, actually. Or Grand Björn. So we've got the slippery snake, the horsey, or the elk.
Tell me about the elk.
The elk is associated with the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. For a new beginning in distant lands, it could be quite fitting. Is this the prow you want?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Then we can get started.
Make the fucking boat.
Eikthyr, bless us on our journey to new lands and a new home.
No!
First thing.
Yes, my Jarl.
I was childish before. In my joy at seeing you home, I wasn't ready to discuss your departure again so soon. Nor see you gone for good. Please, accept this with my blessing.
Unjo. The rune of kinship.
And why not? No man has been a truer brother to me than you. It has been an honor to have you in my Félagið, even if this leg of the trip will be shorter.
Seven months later, and many Aurora Borealis.
The day has finally come.
The day has come to finally sail. Talk of shoes and sailing ships.
Many have come before you.
Cabbages and Saxons.
Many will come after. Yet, when I die, it will be your friendship that I recall as I await the opening of Valhalla.
There, we will meet again.
Go then, and the winds take you swiftly to soft lands and great riches.
May your name never be forgotten.
Take command of the boat.
Your friend be a friend. If you return with him, laughter met with love.
We don't have time to sit and listen to your song, Harold. We have things to do. Journeys to find. Horizons to breach. Saxons to slaughter. I mean, friends to make. I've just pooed. Yes, that is a nice view, but thank you. Oh, still playing Norseys.
I can't take you with us, Sigmund. I'm not risking the lives of my men and wife to these sunstones.
You're making a mistake. With Frodi gone, I'm the best navigator you'll find this time of year, and you know it.
You've already
I'm voiced by the main protagonist of the game.
Of magic pebbles. I'm not letting you steer us into rocks again. Without Frode to guide you, you're as good as blind.
So you'd rather trust whales and winds than your own Félagið? Bjorn was right about you. Try sailing across the sea in this weather. You won't get past the shore. Not without a skilled sailor.
You're absolutely right. I do need a navigator. But you weren't one to begin with.
navigator. Anyone could learn to sail, but every Norse crew had one member who was especially skilled. This person, the navigator, would coordinate the entire expedition and ensure the ship's safe passage between the harbours. The Old Norse term for the navigator was, Leidsögumir. Leslie. He was the guide. There is a man, Medir, gifted with great knowledge of the route, Leadsaga. Yeah, so it's Leidsögumir. The Leidsögumir knew which path Leid was the fastest or least risky. Althair of Hålogaland, as a Norse seafarer, is a prominent example of a navigator. He recounted many of his trips to King Alfred of Wessex circa 890 CE, providing the Christian world with a more comprehensive knowledge of the North and its people. Here is an excerpt of the Old English Orosius, chronicling the beginning of Althair of Hålogaland's journey in the North. Ah, just there, in old gobbledygook. Yeah, it seems to colour it in whenever you get it. No, I don't know. Not here, is there? Nope. Into the boat! The sea, a spiritual being. For ancient Scandinavians, the ocean was more than a massive body of water. It was also a spiritual entity with its own personality, as well as a world in itself, full of mysteries, magic, danger, and the promise of exciting challenges. The Scandinavians called the sea by many names. These titles included Aegir and Saya, which eventually became the modern word sea. The ocean was a source of life. However, her ever-changing mood would sometimes make her violent, merciless. She would deliver death to unwise seafarers. It was believed that labyrinths or stone mazes like this one could trap wicked spirits that might sway the sea to cruelty and violence. A fisherman soon to head out to sea would walk this path, possibly to encourage harmful spirits to follow him and become trapped in the maze. He would then be able to fish in peace. Oh yeah, I've seen those before. I wondered what they were. I know they were the labyrinth, but I didn't know they had Scandinavian origins. Rowing the boat. I'm going to put the auto thing because I can't bother to row the boat.
Well?
No good.
Though this betrayal cuts deeper with each navigator we're forced to turn away.
He got an offer he couldn't refuse. Wouldn't you choose to sail with the great Sea King given the chance?
I already am. Regardless, Frode broke his word. Now we have no navigator and no men in the middle of the sailing season. How are we supposed to cross the sea?
Trick is waiting for us in Notfall with our supplies. He might have heard of someone trustworthy.
Notfall folk dread the great waters more than a feral cat. They'll be of no use in the upcoming storm. No. I'll ask my mother. She knows everyone in Eikundarsund. I'll find a clan to join us there.
Is it wise for you to go? They might not agree to sail with a woman aboard.
I'm sure my charms will outweigh their fears.
Trick looks busy with our supplies. Good man.
I'll be off then.
I was about to say, I'm going to go smacking into the dock at this
Be
rate.
swift, my love. We'll meet you in Ekundarsund once the boat is loaded.
Nutrition on board. Nutrition during a long voyage could be challenging. What ancient Scandinavian sailors were able to eat largely depended on where they were sailing, on the high seas, near the coast, on a river, etc., etc. Water and sometimes alcohol were the first provisions to be brought on board. Generally, the sailors' diet revolved around non-perishable foods such as hard bread, dried fish, or dried meat. Perishable items such as fruits or vegetables were added to the menu when possible. However, they spoiled quickly and could only be replenished where stocks of such supplies existed. In other words, where sailors could find them in nearby settlements or by foraging on the land. On short sea or river routes, sailors could go ashore to fill up on food. Since cooking with fire was possible on land, the crew could enjoy a good hot fresh meal like the one depicted here. On the high seas, however, the reality was quite different. Oh yes, you got like whatever this is, and you got this. I'm assuming that's an apple in there, and you've got that bit of cabbage, a bit of green leaf there, and the bread and the wood. You eat the wood as well, and the booze in the jug there. On here.
Trick. I gather these crates are full of dried cod?
They are. And the other ones have hard bread, meat, and wool canvases for the crew.
Excellent. You have served us well for many years now, Trick. Faithfully.
I can't say it was a pleasure, but you've treated me with respect. I'm grateful for it. Now, I hope my debt has been paid.
In full. Are you sure I can't tempt you to come with us? Your help would be invaluable.
Shackles here versus shackles across the sea? Tough choice to make.
Oh, you misunderstand me. I free you, here and now. But if you return to me willingly as a slave, you can purchase a place amongst my crew. Once we're established in the land across the sea, I'll free you for good, and take you as my partner in trade.
Not many slaves would get an offer like that.
No, and
Well,
probably
then,
badly worded as well.
let's get these supplies on board before the storm hits us.
Meanwhile, over in the other place, there's the load here. No? Okay. Could have sworn there was.
Four legs are faster than two.
Oh yes, the animal taboo. Some animals were taboo in the seafaring world. The bad luck they would bring upon the sailors was so serious that it was forbidden to mention their names aboard a ship, or even to cross their paths on the way to the shore. As a matter of fact, modern archaeology has proven that horses and other taboo animals were included in Scandinavian expeditions, such as the Icelandic settlement. This scientific reality might seem taboo against mentioning or ferrying farm animals aboard a ship was not taken seriously. However, when it comes to studying the beliefs of ancient cultures, it helps to be cautious. Many practices which were logical at the time may seem to be contradictory when seen through a modern lens. So, if one accepts that maritime taboos were at the time logical and real for Scandinavian people, one needs to consider the other archaeological discoveries in that context. One possible theory that could account for both the existence of animal taboos and the archaeological evidence of horses aboard ships is that these taboos could be ritually challenged. Scandinavians might have been able to counteract the bad luck by breaking the taboos on purpose. Okay. Weather vanes were used. Hang on. Yeah. Weather vanes were used to know the direction of the wind. This knowledge was fundamental, even vital, to seafarers. It is therefore astounding that this weather vane was made in the shape of a horse, a land animal that should have been a taboo to speak of on board a ship. Huh. That is strange. Looks like we'll have to run. It would be quick, but I'm not taking the risk. Not that I think it really matters. We get to see the snow in all its snowy glory. No, it didn't actually take as long as I thought it was.
Mother will be happy to see me.
I'd like to think so.
I think we've got everything here as well, haven't we? Yeah, we have. Hopefully this will be one of those chapters where we just do stuff and leave. I was going to do 2 chapters per part, but this one, what, we've only been here for like, what, just under an hour? Not even that? Yeah, just under an hour. Doesn't feel like it. It feels like half an hour. Time is weird. Maybe time is a concept of human
I
perception.
seem to have been visited by Goddess Freya herself.
Mother, it's been a while.
Far too long. The sheep miss you, Gunhilda. They can't bear the thought of losing you to the land across the sea.
They might not have to.
Whatever is troubling you, my love, we will remedy it.
We need more men. The clan we recruited has decided to remain on land. We're left with no navigator nor crew.
Some clans have just returned from the sea. I've seen them camp nearby. I can take you to them, but you'll have to be persuasive.
Do you doubt my abilities, Mother?
Yes.
I wouldn't dare. You've always had wits sharper than Gungnir. I can only hope that just like Odin's spear, you will return to me.
You know we must go
Oh
where
yeah,
our
because he had a
opportunities
magical
lie.
returning
This
thing as
land
well.
is overcrowded. We want our own.
Because what was it? I
fields
think the idea of
to
it was
harvest our own
it would
crops.
always hit what you threw it
Alright.
at,
I won't push any further.
and it would come back to you on your beckoning, much like
And you won't
Mjolnir.
be?
My heart broke the day you left our home.
And yes, Thor couldn't fly with Mjolnir in the Norse myths. That was a Marvel
We've
thing.
Go on, love.
Yes,
Thank
Thor
you,
was not
Mother.
blonde. He was not Chris Hemsworth. He was a big fat gingerman. Like people joked about the Thor that
We are looking for those brave enough to
God of War
divide the
Ragnarok
way of
revealed,
road with us.
and people are like, "Oh, that's not Thor." And I'm just like, "Yeah, it is.
Will you come
It's
with us?
Thor in what he would look like.
It's bad luck to sail with a woman.
It's not Chris Hemsworth."
I won't sail with you.
Good. We'd
That
have
kind
no
of
use for your lack
Proves
of
that some
judgment on
people are
board.
taking Marvel's take on Thor as
Bondi,
being
join
legitimate.
us.
My men and I have just returned from years
And
of
I like
working,
Thor
with
in
Guthrum's
Marvel.
warband. It's time for us to tend to our crops and see our children grow.
When do you leave?
Today,
Have you sailed before?
my husband sailed with Harald Jarl himself. He sailed enough for both of us.
I've learned to be wary of boastful spirits. Your word alone isn't enough.
How can I convince you to accompany us?
Well, why are you leaving our northern land?
Our crops can't grow in the dead of winter. We've tried everything.
I've never had trouble growing my crops, regardless of the cold. Maybe you don't use the right techniques.
My husband is a second son. If we were to stay, our farm will pass to his eldest brother, and we'll be left with nothing.
I understand that all too well. My men and I have found this temporary campsite, but we've got nowhere to go.
Then come with us.
It does sound tempting. Would you
As long as
have
you don't
enough
try and kill
supplies
me.
for all my men?
My husband is loading the meat and the dried fish aboard our ship as we speak. We'll have plenty for everyone.
How will we be sleeping?
We'll protect ourselves with wool canvases.
That should be enough. How will you find your way across the sea?
My husband has met with a sea rider using these rocks he called sunstones.
Well, tell your husband this man is a liar. Sunstones are rarely used for a reason.
We'll observe the signs Midgard has given us. The birds, the currents, the stars. The spirits will show us the way.
It's got, I like how you can get it wrong, but they don't make you
You're
fail.
right. I can help you around these shores, but in the midst of the wave world, we'll need an expert.
It's a bit like the quizzes in Odyssey,
Have
really.
you decided to come?
I have. You speak true and my men are ready to settle.
I'm honored. Gather your men and your things. I'll take you to our ship.
I should know better than to ever doubt you. You excel once again.
There's little to stand in your way when you aim for the sky. Stigur's clan will accompany us. But we remain short a navigator.
I thought of someone while loading the ship.
Who?
You'll need to trust me. But we must reach Heloia first. And fast. The storm is imminent.
I know where Heloia is.
Then, lead the way.
Or you could make him the navigator. Seems to know what he's talking about. Mystery of the shore. The shoreline was full of social activities such as fishing and trading, and when possible was a welcome sight for homes. It also held special significance in the minds of ancient Scandinavians as a place both magical and sacred. The shore was a liminal space, a threshold between life and death. Everything seems to be a threshold between life and death. Magic rituals were thought to have greater chance of success if they were performed at the water's edge, and drowned sailors were often laid to rest there. Legend said that ghosts couldn't cross over water, therefore to prevent angry spirits from travelling inland to haunt the living, the dead were buried at the edge of the sea, in the intertidal zone, so that their grave could constantly be covered by running water. Stone monuments were raised to mark these burial places. The stone pictured here would have been used to stretch the woolen thread of a sail in the making, but some specialists believe there could also have been an amulet of some sort. Did this stone come from the shore? If so, ancient Scandinavians would have considered it to be filled with magical energy and was likely to bring good luck or provide protection, and was probably bloody heavy. I mean, look at it. It's not a tiny... I mean, it probably is a tiny stone. They've just zoomed it in, but you probably find the actual artifact is probably a pebble.
We must exit the fjord. Sail right.
I think this time you have to follow what he says. You can't pop the sail and drive normally. Because it's supposed to be teaching how they navigate.
Now straight ahead towards the setting sun.
Seafaring. The best medieval Scandinavian navigators didn't rely on physical objects such as sunstones. They drew on ancient ancestral tradition and personal experience to hone their seafaring skills. In a society with neither maps nor compasses, a sailor needed a keen knowledge of the seascape. There were other ways to acquire this sea lore. One was through ancestral tradition. Late Iron Age Scandinavians used sailing routes discovered dozens of decades earlier. They passed this knowledge down from generation to generation through an oral tradition. Their maritime expertise was transmitted by word of mouth to their descendants, who secured it by repetition and imitation. The other way to learn sea lore was through direct experience. Becoming a sailor required being in the field, or in this case on the boat. Sailors were constantly performing the same shipboard movements and travelling the same routes. Through repetition, seafarers became familiar with the motions of the sailor. Oh, yeah? Yeah, never mind. And I thought it said something else. And the ships as it navigated different weathers and currents. This practical style of learning helped sailors gain a much deeper understanding of seafaring than they would have done had through a theoretical approach. Theoretical approach only takes you so far. Here's a beautiful photo of Norway. Yes. Yes, it is. Showing the stunning grandeur of the landscape that flanked Vikings on their way to new and adventurous expeditions.
Now, get closer to the shore, but make sure to keep the rocks on your left and the land on your right. We don't want to damage the hull.
Thanks for the crystalline boundary line appearing. There goes the sun.
Embrace the shore until you see a tower of ice.
Oh, you mean that over there in the not so distant distance?
There! The ice tower! Sail towards it! But beware, we're in shallow waters now. Well done. Now we're going to pass a small island filled with sea lions.
Oh, there they are. Plomping away.
Past the Sea Lions Island. Our destination is ahead. Do not lose your course to the storm.
Trying not to.
Do you see the light? Go towards it. It's our destination. This is Helloya.
That's the door.
You shouldn't be here.
Bjorn, brother, I've come to...
Brother? When have we ever been brothers?
We were in the same Filak, Bjorn. We've sworn oaths to respect, support, and protect each other. They still hold true for me.
Those oaths were broken long before my exit.
Yeah, because this is a good idea.
Both of us. You might have forgotten, but I've had years of solitude to remember.
Your scorn will be the death of us all. I haven't forgotten, but I refuse to let the past haunt my future. Maybe you should do the same. We need you, Bjorn. Join us. Lead us through the salted mountains.
Is this a trick? Why come to me?
Can't you trust that not everyone is deceitful? No other sea rider tames the waves like you do.
Now that I can't believe. Take me to your ship then, and we'll leave this wretched place. I see you've made a true sea king of yourself.
It wasn't always pleasant, but I haven't been idle.
It must be nice to have Harald's support.
Mostly Gunhilda's. But yes.
Gunhilda, you haven't changed.
That's
Still
enough
is
from you. Leave us.
as merciless as the Northern Sea.
I know what you're going to say.
Yet it didn't stop you from making such a foolish decision.
You would have never agreed.
And with good reason. How are you so quick to forget?
I'm not.
I don't trust him.
Neither do I. But he's in that boat as well. He won't put us all in danger.
And after that?
After that, we'll part ways. The Isle of Britannia has plenty of land to spare.
May the gods hear you.
Cramped quarters aboard a longship were a real issue for crew members. They would be forced to occupy severely limited space, sometimes for several weeks at a time. Something as simple as sleeping would become a logistical nightmare. Long ships had an open deck. The distance between the keel and the floor were relatively short, usually less than 1 metre. This meant that supplies had to be stacked around the crew. So did the equipment, which included oars, weapons, and anything else the sailors would need during their travels, or once they reached their land or destination, whatever. All of these items left the crew with very little room to move around, as can be seen in this photograph. Yeah, bloody hell, look at it. They were good, but they were very cramped. Sleeping conditions depended on the type of travel undertaken. During short voyages or river journeys, the crew would pull the boat ashore and sleep on land. For long-distance ocean crossings, crew members would be forced to sleep on their bench or on the floor. A canvas would be stretched over the crew, forming a tent that would protect them as well as protect them as well as possible from the weather, while providing them with a roof under which to rest. Sometimes you've got to take the rough with the smooth. In this case, very rough. Yeah, this isn't going to end badly at all.
Head towards the eye of the storm! Brace yourselves! The road is treacherous!
Monk. Look at the old. Oh god, yeah, I must do at least one more. Even though it just probably leaves us with one more to go. I might as well just do it, I suppose. Depends on how long this one takes. I don't know, no, I think we'll still have 2 left.
Praise be to God, the Most High, glory of glory, Lord of lords.
Chippedum!
Help me to show your grace and forgiveness to those who need it most.
Guthrum Jarl approaches!
For thine is the kingdom, the power, and of glory forever and ever. Amen.
Elrich, are you done speaking with your god for now?
My dialogue with him is constant, my lord, even if my lips are not moving.
My lord this, my lord that. Oh, you Saxons are quick to bend the knee. Perhaps it's why you make such excellent prisoners.
And yet King Alfred's army of Saxons has you surrounded.
Yes, well. I had expected him to send for you, but 5 months and more he has left you here with no word. Perhaps you are not as precious to him as you led me to believe.
For what man knows the things of a man except the spirit which is in him?
Or perhaps he finds your habit of quoting dead men as insufferable as I do.
I doubt that very much, my lord.
Come, walk with me. It must be almost time for you to pray again. I'll speak plainly. I've kept my men from pillaging Chippenham so that Alfred will have no quarrel with me should he retake his home.
I see.
Do you?
Oh look, there's a Sutton Hoo helmet. Leadership was crucial in times of war. Each warband's leader was responsible for the behaviour of his men. Without leadership, warriors might succumb to the urge to pillage conquered towns. This could lead to destructive infighting. Anglo-Saxon armies were not led by a single general. Each warband had more than one leader, and at least one of them would take up a position behind their army to supervise the battle. It may also have been mandatory to have another leader on the front line, well placed to lead by example. A commander who would get his hands dirty with the rest of his men was a source of inspiration and morale, 2 key qualities that kept armies fighting against unfavourable odds. This artefact is known as the Sutton Hoo helmet. I wonder where they found it. Some scholars believe it belonged to King Raedwald of East Anglia, allegedly a strong military leader, and because he had a lot of gold in his grave. I mean, most likely, but we don't know. We're never going to know.
Can I trust you to speak on my behalf, or do Saxons cling to their grudges as dearly as Vidar?
Christ demands we show others the mercy he has already shown us. You have nothing to fear from me, my lord.
Well, we shall see.
It lets me explore. I'll go and grab these other ones.
You served under Alfred for many years. Tell me, how does he keep the loyalty of his men? After so many years of defeat, surely his soldiers would join another army.
King Alfred's role has been ordained by God. To desert him would be to go against divine will.
There are no contests of strength, no challenges to his rule.
Why would there be? He alone is destined to lead us until God chooses otherwise.
There may be something to this religion of yours after all.
Yeah, because there's a load around here.
What is going on here?
No. The relic. It's gone.
I want every Saxon in this place searched head to toe.
Wait.
Remember your place, Saxon.
These people have been here since the siege began. They've no reason to steal, not now, and nowhere to flee if they did.
You accuse my men?
I accuse no one. Let me speak with those present. I will find the thieves.
No. You will return to your cell immediately. I will discover who is responsible before Alfred hears of it and decides to retake Chippenham by force.
Oh, bugger. Bye, Britishness.
One of these people must have seen something.
At the time of the Battle of Erdington, Eddington even, never mind me, the so-called Great Heathen Army had been in England for over a decade. Vikings had invaded Wessex at least 3 times in that period. Alfred was fighting an enemy who knew their way around. Knew the way around. Ooh, and that one as well, nice. We'll have to read that one as well. By the time of Guthrum's incursion, Scandinavians were no longer strangers to the land of Anglo-Saxon England. Years of contact with the locals had given them knowledge far beyond what was gathered by the first raiders through coastal trading and scouting. What's more, the Scandinavians had settled in England, many of them now called the kingdom's home. The younger members of the community had grown up in conquered or pacified kingdoms. This meant that they were very familiar with the languages, customs and religion of the territory. The map on this other side depicts shows the principal routes taken by the Vikings during their raids of the kingdoms of Wessex. Each coloured zone represents kingdom: East Anglia, Mercia, Wessex. Each number is supposed to get a location. Bloody hell. Thetford, Reading, Cambridge, Warham, Exeter, Gloucester, and Chippenham. I'll read the thing first. Anglo-Saxons relied on warfare to seize and maintain control and lordship over the land. This kind of domination was called imperium in Latin, while modern historians use dominium. Dominions helped leaders to ensure political success and social religious harmony. Autocratic Anglo-Saxon men used... Every time I hear Saxon men, I just think of that one song on that Christopher Lee album. I get blood of Saxon men. Anyway, they used war to maintain social order and to ensure their own powerful positions. While the nobles lived the warrior's way, those with lesser or middle statuses, such as the Carols, had to wait until they were called to battle to earn prestige and honour. Warbands were almost exclusively made up of teenagers and young men, 15 to 30 years old, whose... Sorry, the writing's really small, my eyes are starting to go. Whose will to prove themselves in combat resulted in fierce competition within the ranks. Their friendly rivalries with their brothers-in-arms were as vital to forging... Doesn't help when you got the thing behind you blocking the O. Combat skills as the battles in which they faced a common enemy. Vikings. Regular warfare was also a good way to keep a warband together. Such groups depended on victories and the spoils that came with them for survival. A successful campaign meant wealth, but also honour, prestige. I keep thinking it continues. Prestige and renown contributed massively to social statuses and were some of the major ways a man could distinguish himself from his peers. Offers Dyke. Oh, that's not near. That's not far away. Shropshire. A ditch of earth distinguished Welsh territories from Mercian ones. Is a good example... Oh no, I'm thinking of Offa's Wood, never mind. Example of a king exercising control or dominion. According to folklore, King Offa of Mercia ordered the construction of the dyke, a section of which can be seen in this image. Right there. I thought this was like a net over it. Turns out no, it's just a visual thing to represent how wide it would have been. Keep doing that. The ancient Scandinavians explored a breathtakingly vast part of the world. While they showed remarkable skill at sailing on the open ocean, they preferred to travel by river instead of along the shoreline. Travelling by rivers and other interior waterways would have involved portaging. This is when sailors take the boat out of the water and transport it over land. The Scandinavians would have used portage to avoid obstacles such as rapids or waterfalls, or to find and follow a new route. When possible, they would have followed... No, sorry. Jesus, I really don't like the... I don't know what it is. For some reason my eyes just keep warping. Like with the... How do I explain this? The background texture, I either don't know if it's a full stop or a splot on the page. And then my eyes just can't follow because it's so fucking small. It should be a bit bigger. I'm going blind, basically. When possible, they would have carried the boat on their soldiers. Fucking hell, I am tired, aren't I? On their shoulders, as represented here. Otherwise, they would have dragged it behind them as they walked. That'd be even worse. More hell on your shoulders, not as bad on your shoulders. Oh, I don't know. With their longships, Scandinavians sailed the Mediterranean and Black Seas. They journeyed to the White Sea and colonised Atlantic islands such as Iceland and Greenland. On their travels, they reached destinations as far east as Iraq and as far west as North America. Oh, yes. No, I haven't even seen that one. I've read that one as well. Altars were church structures made of stone or wood upon which priests made offerings. They ranged in size, held precious relics, and were key to certain Christian rituals, including Mass. Say Mass, Father. In the 4th century, the relics of important saints began to be placed in church altars. As depicted in this illustration, any ritual performed at these altars would share... I need to get my glasses, don't I? Would share in the holiness of saints whose relics they housed. While some altars were fixed, others could be moved. The main altar in Anglo-Saxon churches could nearly always be found against the wall of the outermost section of the building. This meant that the priest performing rituals would be facing away from the crowd of worshippers. His actions would be hidden from their view, which might suggest they were sacred, restricted, a private communion between him and God. Also, magician work. It's like, I will just put this potty on his head. Don't worry, I'll just drape the toilet paper over hers. And it's like, grasp the shaft. I am grasping it. Harder. Yes, hard as I am. What? Never mind, don't listen to him. Yes, with my long bony fingers will protrude upon your nasal regions. Meanwhile, they're all looking up their skirts. Cheeky bunch. I like taking the piss out of medieval artwork. It's beautiful and funny at the same time. There is a difference between conversion and Christianization. In conversion, one could recognize Christ as divine and keep one's heathen ways. Christianization involved a change in worldview and daily ritual. Ah, so force. Through Christianization, Scandinavians would have adopted the following practices: fasting on Fridays and during Lent, having their children baptized, avoiding marriage with cousins. You should avoid that anyway. Donating to churches, swearing by relics or religious objects like this ivory plaque, bollocks, and more. Unlike conversion, which can occur quickly, these behaviours were slowly integrated into the community. It is possible that the Christianization of the Vikings began prior to their arrival in Anglo-Saxon Britain. Many Vikings came from places where they would have encountered Christian ideas and perhaps absorbed them. The Vikings' familiarity with Christianity might have smoothed their quick assimilation into the Anglo-Saxon population. And also, they had angel dive bombers, did the Christians, so you best convert or else they'll bomb your house down. Stukas in Christian form.
Young one, did you see anyone carrying
small child
gold from the chapel?
I saw some men in furs and armor hiding things under their cloaks. They were
holy
talking
fucking
about
shit!
leaving Chippenham at night and said the statue would be too heavy. Then they went to the big house next to the Great Hall.
I'm supposed to be 5, but they're talking like I'm 4.
Guthrum should know what I found. Sister, did you see who took the relic and the rest of the gold?
I saw nothing. Now leave me alone.
I didn't say nothing. Piss off, asshole. Oh look, it's the great pisser of 842.
Tell me, brother, did you see who stole from the chapel?
Don't ask me. Please, just go.
I think pretty much that's what everyone else says. It's the kid who tells the truth. Father!
My apologies, but did you happen to witness anyone
Oh no, not
exiting
father,
the
never
church
mind.
with items made of gold or silver?
Surely I did. Some Saxons came here and took everything they could, carrying it all off to the butcher's house, next to the market.
That seems strange. Good Christians would have no reason to take what is theirs already.
Are you questioning my honor?
Merely making an observation.
Well, if this is the same Frode that the other guys are talking about, then yes, I do question it. Very much so. Right, now we can run around. I can now do the... Doggy! As you sit there. Oh, your fluffy face. Oh, my hands are disappearing into your body. Oh, you... Anyway, enough being silly. Let's be silly even more. Ah, this is a talkie.
As it turns out, early medieval times were full of colours, from paintings and clothing to flowers and vegetables. To break the prejudice against this time period, artists, modelers and texturers made sure to implement vivid colours where they could. But as always, it's a fine balance to find between gameplay needs and historical accuracy. In some cases, developers chose to stick with one colour, despite historians' complaints. You should never mess with a historian. For example, pigs and carrots in AC Valhalla are pink and white, respectively. Although pigs at the time were brownish in complexion, and carrots, well, they had a wide range of colours, from white to purple. This choice helps with comprehension of the world, but also for consistency when certain objects are used in gameplay, such as the explosive red oil jars. Hence, one distinct colour makes items easily identifiable.
Before invading a territory, it was important for would-be conquerors to learn the lay of the land. The Vikings first sent scouts and traders to gather information on the places they intended to raid. Spies! According to the 789 annal of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, seen here, the first Viking raid on Anglo-Saxon soil took place many decades before the advent of the Great Heathen Army. Viking scouts would travel to a region, observing and trading with locals. This was done to gain insights not only on the land itself, but its power structures and politics. The Vikings used this knowledge to decide whether they should attack an Anglo-Saxon leader or serve him as a mercenary. They also used this intelligence to plan their eventual invasion. Viking scouts were not always subtle in their spying. Sometimes they had to trail of burned houses and villages, but this was no accident. Vikings sought to intimidate their rivals through violence and destruction. They were fighting a psychological as well as a physical war. Delightful bunch of people. Invite them to my next birthday. Vikings usually raided during the summer. They would sail the seas, then come back home in time to harvest their crops. Sometimes, however, they needed to find shelter abroad for the winter months. Unexpected circumstances occasionally forced Viking sailors to find a place to spend the winter. They would seek shelter in a small cove or a river island to wait out the cold. These temporary overwintering sites would become permanent outposts like emporia, villages or even major cities as seen in this map. Repton, Jorvik, fucking Jorvik, and London. London's a Shoebury. It's where you go to bury your shoes. Mersey. Is that Merseyside? Is that where it comes from? Well, it can't, 'cause it's down there, not up here. So that's Mercy. Ah, merci beaucoup, Marlene. Right. That one over there. The community of Chippenham in Wiltshire likely began as a Roman settlement. It was occupied by Anglo-Saxons in the 7th century and captured by the Vikings in the 9th. Destroy. According to the Welsh chronicle Acer, Chippenham was a royal centre or villa during Alfred's reign. Chippenham was seized by the Viking chieftain. Oh yeah, I remember this. Guthrum's forces on January the 6th, 878. The date was chosen because it was the Christian holiday of Epiphany, sort of like what? Final Christmas. It kind of was. The Vikings often attacked during Christian holidays, aiming to take their enemies by surprise. Alfred would eventually win back Chippenham from its Viking conquerors. His troops besieged the town for 12 days until Guthrum agreed to surrender. This image from Assassin's Creed Valhalla shows a bird's-eye view of Chippenham, seeming peaceful despite the siege. Yeah, I seem to recall there's a... because I'm looking into like Ethelflaed, and I think there was a... It might have been Chippenham, it might have been something else. But yeah, I think this was the one. They were basically in the middle of a Christmas celebration, and then the Vikings raided, and they were lucky to get out when they did. If they hadn't, they'd have been captured and killed. Well, Alfred would have been anyway. It's pissing it down. Typical English weather. Anglo-Saxon homes were built using different techniques, but shared the same three materials: timber, wood, wattle, and daub. Builders liked to use oak because it was solid and widely available. Wattling was a technique whereby small branches were braided together to form a solid wooden panel. Daub was a mixture of earth, clay, and animal dung. It was used to fill the gaps between the timber or to provide a solid surface for the panels. It's basically mud, innit? Basically mud and poo. People's houses and living conditions varied according to their social status. The common people would live in wooden huts like this one. There they would use the same space for cooking, eating, socialising and sleeping. Because look at the size of it, you wouldn't better fit your man cave in there. That'd be the man cave in itself. A wealthy member of the community would likely have a bigger house. It might include a hall as its common area, and the family would sleep in a separate building. Ooh, fancy. Fancy pants. Look at the fancy pants guy with his giant building. I suppose you could say similarly, like apartments, I suppose, today. I don't know. Anyway.
To replicate England's diverse flora was no small feat. The developers wanted it to be accurate and help players navigate the map. First, the world design team created a season map. England was divided into 4 areas, each allocated a season. Each season had its own variety of vegetation, from grass to trees, and its own humidity layer, which helped determine the type of soil in each area, lush, dry, or wetland. With these in hand, the level artists and designers could implement the right type of flora in the world and create different landscapes using rocks and trees. Therefore, one region could have diverse but coherent scenery, engaging players in exploring the map meticulously.
Did you get that? I wasn't paying attention because these bore the crap out of me. Some do, some are interesting, some are not. Plus we don't have to do anything. Oh god, there's... Oh! All of them over there. Ivor the Boneless. Oh, of course, they won't let me go and find them yet. Fine, we'll continue with the bloody story. Out of the way, sheep!
The child said the thieves went to the big house next to the Great Hall. Bjorn! Pleasure to see you. I'm searching for our sacred relics that have been taken from the chapel. May I look inside to clear your good name?
Certainly not. My men are sleeping, and I won't have them disturbed by some monk on a foolish hunt for fault where there is none.
I need to look inside. There must be another entrance.
Because this monk can parkour. That kind of bodes for things to come.
Out of the mouth of babes.
What were you able to get?
Not much. They're guarding the food carefully now, but we should have enough for 2 or 3 days.
We'll leave tonight then, before Alfred's war dogs arrive. Gather the gold into sacks, and let no one see you.
It shall be as you say, Bjorn Jarl.
I like the sound of that.
I should exit the same way I came in.
Well, duh, yeah. Casually run away. That's how we do it in this town. Leave Thorstein's in here somewhere. Oh, there he is. I think that's him. Oh, no, there isn't. Never mind.
My lord, I found the missing gold and the relic of Ely. I told you to return to your cell, Elrich. I will not brook disobedience, not from my men and not from you. Bjorn is organizing your men to flee Chippenham by night and leave you to face Alfred's wrath alone. What? If you are lying to me, monk, now return to your cell. Do not let me lay eyes on you until you come at my command. Yes, my lord.
Oh, wait a minute. This isn't my cell.
I need to return to my room. Guthrum abhors disobedience.
Get inside, monk. I won't be held accountable by...
Go to your room. 2 days later.
Good morrow, Bjorn. Have you come to join me in prayer?
Never, monk. Guthrum Jarl wants to speak with you in the Longhouse. Bring your golden idol. You'll need it before long.
Bjorn is waiting. I should not stoke his impatience. Time to travel again, old friend.
This relic carries a shard of the one true cross, if you doubt its potency. I doubt every lie that falls from your lips. Asher Guthrum, you made it trouble for me and my men.
Trouble brought upon you by your own actions.
And by a monk who doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut.
Only...
Get stuffed?
And beg forgiveness. Can we hope to atone for them?
Spare me your sermons. I won't forget the debt you owe me. And neither will you, if you have a mind to keep living.
It's time to travel again, old friend.
Okay.
You wished to see me, my lord?
Your king has finally sent for you. Alfred has delivered the terms of my surrender, and I have accepted. You are no longer my prisoner.
Thank you, my lord. I will remember you in my prayers.
One moment, Elrich. I admit the insights I gleaned into the Saxon mind through our discussions made Alfred's terms easier to swallow. He wants me to be baptized, to become a Christian king. It is you who convinced me that doing so would increase my power, not diminish it.
Of course, any who come to the Lord are welcome. Hopefully in time, you will appreciate the many other gifts God offers beyond mere power as well.
Mere power? Hold your tongue, monk. With the treaty signed, your usefulness is at its end. Leave by the main gate. A horse awaits you. Now go before I change my mind.
Yes, my lord. I'd better meet the messenger before Guthrum changes his mind.
Oh, sorry, bear with me a moment. Anyway, Norse it! Don't forget my ceremonial box. Just check not gone through everything. In the aftermath of the Battle of Eddington, the Viking... did I read this one? The Viking chieftain and 30 of his companions were baptised at Alla, where Alfred held his court. Following the baptism, Guthrum pledged to withdraw his troops from Wessex. No, but they didn't. It was chronicled that for 8 days following the liturgical instructions, Guthrum and the baptised Vikings wore the white robes of these newly reborn in Christ. Then at the royal estate of Wedmore, after receiving the right to remove the white attire, the Vikings joined Alfred and his entourage for 12 days of feasting. According to scholars, the Truce of Wedmore is mentioned in 3 historical sources: the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, a vast collection of chronological entries covering events of major importance, of which one page is pictured here, The Life of King Alfred, created by Asa, a Welsh monk who joined the entourage of Alfred in 885 CE, and finally the so-called Law or Treaty of Alfred and Guthrum. Therefore, there is very little doubt about the accuracy of this narrative. That said, since the aim of such texts was not to share the truth behind the selective events, but to contribute to the making of the exemplary Christian king, it helps to be cautious and critical. After all of these historical documents were deemed and sponsored by King Alfred the Great during his reign. Peace, like warfare, was a political tool rather than a complete lack of violence. The Anglo-Saxons considered peace to mean that at a precise moment in a specific place, 2 parties made peace for as long as both sides agreed to it. Leaders and their men would swear not to fight each other if the other party kept the peace. That is, if neither side broke the agreement. The two sides could also exchange hostages, i.e. members of the group who would be handed over in order to secure the agreement, with the understanding that if the peace was not kept, the other party would dispose of the hostages. At first, Christianity did not profoundly change this conception of peace. Instead, peace eventually required that a leader and his men became Christian. Since Christians could only trust other Christians, even then it didn't mean that peace could be broken in the aftermath of the baptism. In this scene from the Beard Tapestry, Conan the Count of Brittany, gives the City of Keys to William, the future King of England, as a way to surrender and make peace. And take the peace. It's hard when you don't know which ones you've looked at. Because some of them just appear, and this is what I was worried about doing with this. Alright, now we can finally grab the ones that were over there. In the Anglo-Saxon era, there was little difference of status between foot soldiers and warriors who rode on horses. These distinctions would come a few centuries later in the Middle Ages. This copper alloy stirrup mount dates to the 11th century. Historians continue to debate how horses were used in Anglo-Saxon warfare. It is thought that warriors would ride to battle, but not necessarily into battle. West Saxons would use horses to move swiftly across terrain to intercept Viking attacks, but may have dismounted once the fighting began. There could be many reasons to fight on foot rather than on horseback. By dismounting, a warrior gave up the chance at an easy retreat. The gesture could have been seen as courageous. Committing to fighting on foot to the bitter end maybe have strengthened the bonds between a group of warriors. Again, that's understandable. Ooh.
200 unique weapon models were designed for AC Valhalla. After thorough historical research, modelling artists had the difficult task of designing realistic but spectacular weapons. Talk about a brain twister. Well, that's a good name for a weapon, actually. The flail was also added to the arsenal as a unique form of weaponry, even though flails weren't used by soldiers in battle, but by peasants during harvest. To enjoy these weapons even more, new fighting styles were created. Players can now fight with a weapon in each hand, the dual wielding, or hit foes with their shield, sort of like a dual shielding.
They do look cool. I'll give them that as well. The weapons in the games look really good. It's just the fighting style with them is not much different than... Yeah, there's no difference between how they fight. A warrior's social status determined the quality of their equipment. The wealthier a soldier was, the better equipped they would be for battle, well, of course. The wealthiest aristocrats would have been relatively well equipped with a sword, shield, helmet and armour. High-ranking members of the nobility would likely have worn a coat of mail beneath a dense, tough tunic to protect themselves from enemy blows. When a ceorl or a freeman was summoned by his lord to join the feud, or militia, he would have been armed with a spear, a round shield, and possibly a boiled leather helmet. Basically a boiled egg. Some ceorls would have... Carols will also have carried javelins, bows, and arrows. Even though bows and arrows were useful as long-range weapons, they were not highly regarded by Anglo-Saxons. Bows were considered beginner weapons rather than the tools of veteran warriors. What's that? You're using the bow, are you, big baby? Anglo-Saxons may have looked down upon bows and arrows because they were cheap to make and therefore appropriate for the low-born rather than the people of high status. This attitude may explain why so few arrowheads have been found by archaeologists and why bows are so rarely mentioned in written accounts of the era. Rare pieces of equipment from the era have been found, and these offer great insight into warfare during the period. The Yarm helmet seen here is not Anglo-Saxon but Anglo-Scandinavian. It was discovered in Britain in the 1950s. It is the first nearly complete Viking helmet found in Britain and the second one in Europe. Yeah, because I think even today we've still only found 2 near complete Viking helmets. Like proper Viking helmets. The first was the Gejmund, that one, helmet, which was found in 1943 on a farm in Norway. All of the Viking helmets have been found as fragments, but all in little bits instead of full bits, or 8 bits.
Shields played an important role in the Viking and Anglo-Saxon fighting techniques, and in AC Valhalla as well. Used in the game to differentiate clans and factions, each one has its own shape, paint model, colour pattern, and emblem. A new gameplay element was also added, the shield degradation. With each hit, an enemy's shield loses a piece until it's destroyed, and players can also now attack using their shields. Little known fact, it was common for vendors to walk around the battlefield, supplying clients with replacement shields and weapons. What can we say? Vikings were resourceful, though it's not a job I would have wanted.
Yeah, just like halfway when the battle's done. Right, get your shields, get your axes, fresh axes, fresh off the anvil. Hello, Mr.
It is
Messenger.
King Alfred who must claim this great victory, though of course God strengthens his hand. Brother Elrich, I was told to wait on you. King Alfred desires to see you at once.
And let us not keep the good king waiting. What news in Winchester since
Good
Christmas?
king's a strong
Too
word.
much for me to say. But the battle at Eddington was won, and...
I didn't know what that was. Is that the one? Yeah, military organisation. Before the reign of King Alfred, there were many ways to summon soldiers to battle. Each king essentially had a private army, but collecting everyone took time, meaning they were often slow to respond to Viking attacks. Aristocrats would gather their kin to fight, or use the levy to conscript commoners into their ranks, but the latter was especially slow. During the Viking invasions era, a Scandinavian band would plunder a countryside of a region before a noble could assemble his troops. The creation of a more stable military force, suggested and implemented by Alfred, ensured a quicker reaction to Viking raids. The common conception of the king going to war surrounded by his loyal lords is somewhat misleading. Although the king did call upon his men to fight, it seems that each of the lords, thanes, led their own armies, rather than placing them under the command of the king. Yeah, I don't want that king doing it, he'll just have them all murdered. No, I didn't vote for him.
So many years of war, the land seems all but untouched.
Yea, nature's beauty has taken not nearly so hard a beating as we have.
It's a pleasure to see it again as a free...
The Battle of Eddington. A key event in English history was the Battle of Eddington. There, King Alfred of Wessex led his men against those of Guthrum, a strong Viking chieftain, whose men had dwelled in and plundered the West Saxon lands for several years. In this map, each solid arrow represents an advance, while the dashed arrows show retreats. Red is Alfred, blue is Guthrum. Each number corresponds to a specific event. So number 1, which is... what? This? It must be. It would be great if that thing wasn't there. There we go. So it is that one. January 878. King Alfred and his men were chased from Chippenham by Guthrum's army. They were forced to retreat to the marshes of Athelney, where they built fortifications to protect themselves. In the first week of May 878, Alfred secretly called a levy at Egbert Stone. Men from neighbouring countries answered and joined the king and his retinue. Guthrum, informed of the gathering of the Feeds English militia, readied his troops to intercept the coming enemy and move to the ancient fortification of Bratton Camp south of Chippenham. The 12th of May, the two armies met in battle in the field of Eddington. 5th, the same day, the Anglo-Saxons routed the Vikings. Guthrum fled, retreating to Chippenham. This defeat marked the end of his reign as a Viking chieftain. People who enjoy fantasy novels and movies might be interested to learn that this whole narrative was very probably a source of inspiration for J.R.R. Tolkien in The Lord of the Rings. Sounds a bit Helm's Deepy? Well, actually, no. Maybe more Gondor. I don't know. I mean, yeah, because it's kind of like they rode out to fight. They had a crap, and then they had to go run back into Gondor. Yeah.
What news of the king? How does he celebrate his triumph?
Oh, I don't know.
Plans and late-night discussions. I've never seen a man smile so little when reporting such a great victory.
He's right to be wary. Guthrum is not tamed yet.
If you say so. His ferocity seemed to be at an ebb when I delivered King Alfred's terms.
I pray you are right. It would be well if we are done with war for his sake and ours.
I'll drink to that, brother.
Good. Well, while you're at it. Oh, for God's sake. Let me do it while I'm on the horse. The structure of land ownership in Anglo-Saxon territories was slowly shifting prior to the Scandinavians' arrival and conquest. Larger states were splintering into smaller pieces of territory. The losers of the changes in land ownership were mostly secular and religious aristocrats, whose great estates were torn up and redistributed. The pieces went to the Vikings, whose invasions sped up the fracturing of the territory, but also to less wealthy Anglo-Saxon families, whose new land meant a rise in social status. This drawing of Lincoln and its surrounding sheds light on how land was distributed at the time. In tiny little squares. Alright, where's the other one? Silver River. Odin! The megaliths. A megalith is a massive prehistoric stone used in a monument. Megaliths likely played a major role in the religious rites of ancient societies. The sun is rising, strikes upon the stones, and the stones cast shadows. And are you aware of the pair of shadows? Megalithic monuments included stone circles, can be found throughout the world. In England, there are a number of standing stones arranged in a circle. Sometimes the megaliths stand alone, sometimes in pairs and topped with a stone roof or lid. Avebury is home to one of the biggest stone circles in the world. It has a diameter of 331.6 metres and was built during the 4th millennium BCE. The Avebury monument features a large henge, a raised ring of earth, a big outer stone circle and two smaller inner circles at its centre. Sorry, I was just doing a explore. I'll get on my horse and come back. Nay. Just check I've not left anything back there. Nope. Thank God for that. God, there's a load more here. for the fucking horse. As the Scandinavians occupied territories in Anglo-Saxon Britain, their population grew. This growth in the number of people was matched by a rise of agricultural production. A growing population meant a growing need for prime materials, crops and livestock that could be used for food, clothing, trade and taxes. Scandinavian settlers likely grew 4 types of cereals: wheat, whose flour would make coarse bread, barley for brewing beer, rye and oats to feed both animals and humans. They also grew legumes and herbs like dill and coriander for spicing and seasoning. They cultivated flax and hemp to make textiles for clothing and trading. The Scandinavians' use of livestock was not much different from that of the Anglo-Saxons. For both groups, cattle provided milk and meat, and oxen were used to plough fields, as well as seen in this manuscript image. If I just poke it with a red hot stick, then that'll do it, won't it? Then maybe my trousers will come back, because my legs are getting cold. We hope the trousers didn't be burnt. Sorry, I'm just dropping all this piss all over the floor. My trousers are that wet. Oh, it's alright, it's going to be a dry day. Just don't want to run me wheel over the cows. Oh, too late, it's already happening. Oh, well, it's just treated as a separate chapter. Oh, we might be right then. Because I'll definitely end it now, if that's the case. Oh, God, no. Oh, God, no.
The castles of England were meant to be seen from afar by anyone seeking refuge. Except rulers didn't really account for their castles also attracting Vikings. All fortified areas in AC Valhalla were inspired by the castles the development team visited while in England. Portchester, Derby, Goodrich, Housesteads, the Roman fort at Hadrian's Wall. They nearly bankrupted the project just in the gift shops alone. The Castell Trefaldwyn in Wales inspired the fictional Corstow Castle, a fort in the Shropshire region.
Shropshire? Is that where the Chiropody is?
Great bounty to collect during raids, and lords will often retreat behind a castle's protective walls when fleeing from Eivor. Oh, they can run, but they can't hide. Well, I mean, they can hide, but, you know, Eivor will still get them.
I mean, yeah, we'll stab him in the face. Right, if you don't mind, I am now going to explore for all these things, so bye! I'll grab them while I'm here. This looks Roman. Oh, subtle. No, we did pretty much just move into where the Romans were. City of Winchestershire. The city of Winchester has a long history stretching back centuries. In the Anglo-Saxon period, it was an important religious and political centre, because it already was a bloody centre. When the Roman legions conquered southern Britain, they were said to have settled in an ancient meeting place of the Belgae tribe. The Romans built a town there and called it Venta Belgarium, or Market of the Belgae. Belgae? Surrounded by stone walls, Venta Belgarium became a regional centre for centuries. After the Roman leaders left Britain, the Saxons invaded, claiming Venta Belgarium as their own. According to Bede the Venerable, a Northumbrian monk, the Saxons called it, Untanseister, or the walled city of Uenta. That'll do. After the territory was christened, Winchester became the seat of Bishop Wine. Or Bishop Wine? Is that where they get the wine from? Bishop Wine was the first bishop to be consecrated in the Old Minster, the Anglo-Saxon Cathedral of Winchester. Winchester, mapped here, was associated with royalty of Wessex, and as it had been for both the Romans and the Saxons, was an important centre in Anglo-Saxon Britain. Because it's a big city that already existed. The only reason why I liked it is because you didn't have to build it. Because Saxons are lazy bastards. Says me, an Anglo-Saxon. Maybe, I don't know. At least partly, anyway. It is thought that cooking was mainly done by men in Anglo-Saxon households. However, women and children may have helped in preparing food. For the rich and powerful, cooking would have been done by the slaves. In poorer and humbler Anglo-Saxon homes, the living room and the kitchen would have been one and the same. However, some wealthy freemen and aristocrats may have had their kitchens in a separate building next door. Pots and pans like this one were sometimes made of cast iron, but were mostly ceramic. Cooking could be done over a hearth by suspending a pot over a fire, or by placing it directly in the embers. Meat may have been prepared by using a spit to grill it over the flames. As you do when you grill your own meat on a spit. Grill. Poppy Donk Grill. That's what they say, don't they? Poppy Donk Grill. The Ceorls or Freemen. The Ceorls or Freemen were the non-aristocratic subjects of a kingdom. They mostly worked in farming and agriculture, and there were many different social and economic classes within the group. The main factor that divided the classes of freemen was how much land they owned. With land came wealth. The more land a Ceorl had, the higher their social status, privileges and standard of living. At the bottom of the social ladder were Ceorls with very little land, unable to provide food for their families. These freemen would have relied on their local lord to survive. In exchange for the noble support and protection, the Ceorls would have been expected to work the lord's lands at least a few days a week. One rung up the ladder where the Ceorls had enough land to support their families. These wealthier freemen would have worked for the lord on occasion to pay their rent. Finally, at the top of the ladder were Ceorls who had large tracts of land. They may not have been expected to work on the lord's lands. They would just use their superior wealth to pay the aristocrat for his protection instead. They would also provide him with different services, offering horses or food, cutting his hedges, putting out snares to catch hares, or other animals, making offerings to the church on his behalf, running errands, mending fences with tools such as the carpenter axe head shown here. Put it there. Could do some damage, that could. That better not be up there. Oh god, it is. Oh, cover it up. bishops. Anglo-Saxon bishops were far more than religious leaders in their given territory. They were also political elites. Sometimes they found themselves caught between the two roles. Dun dun dun. Christian bishops were responsible for guiding the faithful in their dioceses towards salvation. They ensured that the sacred rites were performed in their communities during marriages, funerals, and masses. Through the sacraments, bishops could channel the grace of God to every Christian. Christianity and the Church were considered one and the same, and the bishops held the Church's power in his domain. However, a bishop's religious duties sometimes conflicted with his earthly ones. Anglo-Saxon bishops were members of the ruling elite, and it was in their interest to protect and preserve that elite. What was the best for the elite was not always what was best for the common people, the faithful Christians in the dioceses. Bishops were also representative of the Roman Church, initially a foreign institution. At the same time, they were private counsellors to Anglo-Saxon kings, expected to help enforce and expand their dominion. Bishops served multiple masters, and sometimes they would be caught between their duty to one and their duty to another. However, kings also had a duty to God. In this illustration, a king visits St. Cuthbert, who in life had been the Bishop of Lindisfarne. That the king comes to the saint, and not the other way around, suggests that the saint is the more powerful of the two, and is painted to emphasise the influence of the Church over secular authority. Hang on a minute. The hell? Are you sticking a rune on my head? No. No, I think he was. I don't think he was. I'm pretty sure he was. Guys, you're standing very close. Sorry, it's the new queue to meet the saint. You know, the British and queuing, you know, we ram ourselves together so closely, it gets a little bit personal. The Church divided the Christian world into dioceses, each overseen by a bishop. The bishop was charged with ruling the diocese and ensuring the spiritual care of the faithful living within. The Church in Anglo-Saxon Britain dated back to the Roman era. Centuries later, it was the sole surviving imperial institution on the island. Its structure, however, continued to change long after the Romans left. The departure of the Romans from the territory in the 5th century upset the power structure of the Church. When Anglo-Saxon Britain became Christian, it seemed at first that each of the kingdoms even would have had their own bishop. This meant that some bishops ended up controlling enormous amounts of people and land. Land too much? What? Anyway. Theodore of Tarsus, the Archbishop of Canterbury, managed to set things right, reorganising the bishops and splitting the colossal diocese of York into 3 parts. When the Scandinavian Great Heathen Army reached the shores of Anglo-Saxon Britain, there were roughly 16 dioceses and 2 archdioceses on the island. They are shown on this map. Lindisfarne, Hexford, York and Lindsey, Lichfield, Hereford, Werford, Leicester, Elmham, Dunham, London, Rochester, Canterbury, Selsey, Winchester, Sherborne. I have been to... about 5 of those places. 2 of which I've studied in. The other one I was going to study in. I'll leave you to guess which one.
Whilst King Alfred is an historical figure, artists and modelers had a lot of documentation to help with his design. With pre-established features, age, height, backstory kept as accurate as possible, his appearance had to represent his royal demeanor, but also his weakened state. He suffered from Crohn's disease. This contrast was made through the design of his clothes, hair, and facial features. As one of the main characters in AC Valhalla, seen up close in multiple cinematics, it was imperative to design every detail meticulously. So much so that it took 10 days to design his
Crohn's
hair.
disease before? Oh, nice. Lovely digestive disease. Inflammation of the bowels. Main symptoms involve diarrhea, stomach aches, cramps, and blood in your shit. So that would explain why he's pale all the time? I don't know. He was a sick boy, was our Alfred. A little sick boy. God, there's bloody so many of them. Yeah, definitely stopping after this one. My throat is starting to get scratchy. Ah, the legendary brothers. The legend of the Anglo-Saxons in Britain began with two brothers, Hengist and Horsa, exiled warriors from Germanic lands. They were said to have brought the Anglo-Saxon and Jutish tribes to Britannia's shores. Legends say that after they were banished, Hengist and Horsa travelled the seas with 3 boats. They had been recruited as mercenaries by Vortigern, ruler of the former Roman province of Britannia, to protect his people from invaders. In exchange, he offered to pay them a monthly sum. The brothers did as Vortigern requested, defeating his enemies. But once peace was won, Hengist invited his family and friends from beyond the sea to join him in Britannia. He told them that there was land enough for everyone and that the people living there were too weak and gentle to resist them. More and more Germanic tribes came to live in Britannia, and the brothers soon asked Vortigern to increase his payments. They asked for more and more, and eventually Vortigern refused. In response, the Germanic tribes waged war against all the British tribes, beginning the era of the Anglo-Saxons in Britain. According to the Venerable Bede, a famous monk and scribe from Northumbria, yeah, you said that before, Hengist and Horsa were direct descendants of Woden, the Anglo-Saxon version of the Scandinavian Odin. Woden is portrayed here as the ancestor of the kings. So you see, with all my beard strands, I'm connected to him, and him. Especially him, he's just chopped the beard stuff and stuck it on his face. He's like, I am the great tickler, and I am the great poker, I am the one with the fingers on his hat. I'm the slimy one. And I'm the fat one. Where's the other one gone? When a chief grew powerful enough, he and his tribe seeked to subdue their neighbours, sometimes by violence, sometimes through alliances. These power struggles led to the creation of the First Kingdoms. Just as the tribes had sought to dominate each other, so too with the kingdoms. Their struggle for territories led to the emergence of stronger kingdoms that conquered the weaker ones. In the 7th century, only a dozen kingdoms were left standing, and only 4 when the Vikings arrived in the late 8th century. They each had a slice of Anglo-Saxon Britain's people and land. Their portions were divided into hides, units of land, wealth and population. This manuscript is an extract of the tribal hidage, which detailed how many hides each tribe possessed. In the 1100s, the historian Henry of Huntingdon identified 7 of them as major kingdoms: Kent, Essex, Wessex, Sussex, Mercia, East Anglia and Northumbria. In the 16th century, this supposed rule of 7 kingdom was called the heptarchy, Greek for rule of 7. Nice. So I'm just again sorting something out. Yeah, I'll do. On to the next one. Jesus. I trust these are short and sweet and to the point. A, I'm kind of tired. B, my voice is screaming at me. And C, I want soup. It's probably what I'm going to need from my mouth anyway. My throat even. The old minster. It's that old, it's got vines all over it. That's how you can tell how old it is. God, is it inside? Yeet! It's quite spry for a monk guy. King Alfred had won an important battle at Edington. However, it was his tactics after the battle that showed his political genius. By having Guthrum, his vanquished enemy, baptised, Alfred cemented a lasting victory. By having Guthrum baptised, Alfred forced his old foe to conform to the spiritual system that Alfred followed Christianity. Alfred wasn't even that. Alfred used that system to his advantage, to cunningly choose himself to be Guthrum's godfather. By making himself Guthrum's spiritual guide, Alfred created ties of symbolic kingship between them. However, baptism had political benefits for Guthrum as well. Being Alfred's godson gave him the status of a respected Christian leader. Guthrum was made the king of East Anglia, a member of a small select circle of Anglo-Saxon monarchs. Guthrum's transformation as a Christian ruler was a political win for both the Viking and his godfather Alfred. This illustration depicts an idealised baptism scene from an epic poem, the the Aspremont, popular in later medieval England. It imagines the baptism of a character called Balin, an Iberian royal messenger at the court of Charlemagne. Yes, dunk him in! Dunk him in! I'm sure, I'm growing out of your shoulder, mate. You sure you don't want to deal with that? No, it is not important. Plus, I also have another head growing from my shoulder. Oh, God, I hope that doesn't happen to me. Look, guys, seriously, I don't want to do this. Stop it. Yeah, it does literally look like he's growing from the shoulders. Two-headed monsters! Because they've got no feet. I did say I was going to take the piss out of these. Sigurd. The Old Minster was the first cathedral or bishop's seat of Winchester. The first bishop to settle the year was Wine. or literal wine, a Saxon wine would eventually become the Bishop of London. I need to really learn to read that. The first cathedral church of Wessex was built around 640 CE by King Kenval of Wessex and Saint Bernard, a Frankish missionary. Though it was further north in Dorchester-on-Thames rather than Winchester when the bishop's seat was moved to Winchester, a few years later, the old minster may have been the first stone building erected in Winchester since the departure of the Romans hundreds of years earlier. Sorry, I've been having a fizzy drinks. I'm a bit burpy. This in-game shot from Assassin's Creed Valhalla shows how the development team sought to capture the majestic interior of the building. However, the church would have felt far more cramped at the time, as the building itself was narrower than any side chapel and altars in the corner. Burning incense and smoke from the tapirs would have also given it a sultry atmosphere. Also would have got up your nose and made you sneeze. Might have also interpreted... So I sort of go into this pseudo Eccleston voice. Might have also had its hand in the death toll. Well, I think it's Nicholas Briggs' version of Christopher Eccleston in the novels. Anyway. Alfred's silver coins. Coins from this period suggest that new mints were established between 871 and 878 CE. I've seen BCE so often I get the two confused. Including one in Winchester. King Alfred was minting coins with a greater amount of silver. Money, money, money. This is my money now. I'm pretty sure I have been to Winchester. I'm going to have to go back again at some point. Alfred had needed more and more coins to pay the mercenaries hired to protect Wessex and to pay tributes to Norse invaders. For reasons that are still not entirely clear, even before he defeated the Viking chieftain Guthrum, Alfred decided to make more valuable coins with higher quantities of silver. The increase in silver might have been Alfred's way of announcing a new era of prosperity for Wessex. However, a higher silver content also meant a more stable coin economy, as people could rely on the value of coins. The coins also helped display Alfred's new wealth and power after his victory over Guthrum. You know, how handy for him. Big boy smell. The Witan. In Anglo-Saxon Britain, it was expected that kings and queens would be counselled by a group of powerful nobles, the Witan. The Witan, or wise men. The wise men! The wise men! Would gather in an ensemble, Gemot, to advise the ruler on their decisions. The Witan was made up of aristocrats from both secular and religious backgrounds. Just trying not to say what I've already thinking of saying with that picture. I'll leave it till we're done. They were noblemen, archbishops, aldermen and abbots. Depicting this illustration at the ruler's side, the Witan acted as his counsellors. Their advice was meant to ensure that the ruler's laws were just and worthy. The presence of the Witan meant that lawmaking was a group activity. As with any group or project, the better the team worked together, the better the final product. If the king and the Witan had a difficult relationship, the system could break down. For while the king could summon the Witan could also summon the king, and then the king could summon the Witan could summon the witches. Anyway. If the king was ignoring the Witan and their advice, it's basically Parliament, isn't it? The Witan needed to find a healthy balance of power between them so that laws could be passed quickly and efficiently. How do I know which one's my Witan? Look at the hats and the robes. They're dressed like absolute bunch of silver and gold gilded gnomes. Oh yay! We're gnomes of the king. Hey yay! We're gnomes of the king. Hey yeah! I'm a gnome of the king and I'm small. Who invited that one? Let me cut his head off. I think I've lost my mind. Yes. Yes! He's found the final book! It's the final chapter of Harry Potter that didn't get released. I assume. You know, the one that was a better book than the last book we got. That's why he's like, yes, this is the one! The lost manuscript. Or it's one of Shakespeare's lost plays. Let's go with that. Alfred's subjects struggled to understand the Bible because it was written in Latin. To help his people access the scriptures, Alfred promoted Christian writers written in their mother tongue, Old English, such as Beowulf. You didn't notice that? I mean, so did they, because they mentioned it here, but I noticed it before you even mentioned it. Alfred wanted to be remembered as a good Christian king. He was bothered by his people's ignorance of the Bible and felt that their poor Latin was to blame. Not many of them could read or write, Alfred, just remember that. To solve this problem, he pushed to have Latin classics translated into Old English. This gave rise to the birth of Old English literature. No. Alfred believed strongly in literacy. He wanted all young aristocrats to learn to read and write. Oh, that's why that's... Okay, then. At least he did that, I suppose. This wasn't only for religious purposes. Being able to write and understand messages in Old English could have been useful for war and diplomacy. Yeah, messengers and stuff. Old English also became a literary language for sagas and epic poems such as Beowulf, pictured here. Ah, yes. Der Pflefen Floffen von Beowulf, Pflefen Pflefen Floffen. Led Keniglons. Oh god, I don't know my Old English that well. Folkums Faden Erlen Hafen. I'm going to stop now before I embarrass myself even further. But I think I've done that already enough today. Half declining fop. Oh, I'm going to watch Caedicurus when we're done here. The Lewis Chessman. Did you know the British Museum is selling replicas of those for like a stupid price?
AC Valhalla is set during a very tense political climate. English kingdoms were fighting one another, as well as trying to ward off Viking attacks at the same time. Hence, maps are displayed in the game as battle plans. To help players visualize friends and foes, chess pieces were designed. The 3D modeling team first created items inspired by an early Scandinavian chess set, the Njevertapel, which was combined with the Lewis chess pieces. Recently found in Scotland, they were crafted out of walrus tusk and whale teeth in the 12th century. This design merged English and Scandinavian heritage into a unique item.
Yes, these are in the British Museum. Well, not these ones, these are the 3D models, but the actual Lewis chessmen are in the British Museum, and they are actually quite cool. Like, I didn't know they were there. It's one of those things that I just wandered through the section, saw them and went, oh! Like a serendipitous discovery. As I say, I want to get out of the house now, thank you. Please tell me we've only got 2 left. Oh, praise the Lord.
Thank you for ensuring my safe return. Alfred will be waiting on my return.
What was a king? The Anglo-Saxon word for king was Kynig, the foremost member of a group who represented and symbolised all his kin, family, clan, tribe. At first, Anglo-Saxon kings didn't rule over a territory, but a constellation of social groups. Oh look, the actual Lewis chessmen. Or at least, replicas of them. Never mind then. The notion of king in the early Middle Ages differed from one region to the next. One factor that determined the nature of kingship in a given territory was the size of the royal domain. Kingdoms of Britain such as Mercia or East Anglia were much smaller than those in continental Europe. For example, the Frankish dominion covered most of present-day France, Germany and Italy, thanks to Charlemagne. Yeah, pretty much thanks to Charlemagne, really. Whereas Alfred's Wessex only extended from the River Thames to southern England, while a Frankish ruler could not visit all of his kingdoms, nor could they meet and feast with all the important people in it, Anglo-Saxon kings like Alfred and Guthrum could. This made it easier for an Anglo-Saxon or Scandinavian king to treat his whole kingdom and everyone in it as his kin. That being said, this sense of familiarity, this social bond, did not mean there was no hierarchical distinction between the king and his subjects. A king was still first and foremost a king. Good. Here's an ingenious depiction of a royal couple on these chess pieces. God damn it, I'm so bored! Make me a coffee! Oh, I don't care! I heard about their coffee, all this drinking you're doing. Snatch this cup away! God damn it, I want a coffee! Look, this giant loaf of bread I'm holding, I'm crushing it between my hands, I'm so tense. Yeah, we've got three more. So yeah, we'll do this one, then we'll stop. I'll have to bring a better drink with me, like water with me or something. Just making sure we've looked at everything. Or at least everything we've looked at is something we've seen. Probably do this again before we finish, when we start the next chapter. Under Alfred's rule, each burh or fortified town would be able to raise its own fyrd or militia of warriors. This meant that there was a constant military presence throughout the kingdom of Wessex. According to the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, Alfred divided his army in two. Half the men were at home and half were on duty. Those on duty were expected to come, if called, to defend the burh or to join the king and his lords in battle against their enemies. Not all militiamen in the fyrd were necessarily skilled warriors. Wealthier fyrds could offer better equipment and weapons to their defenders, and wealthier men could have more free time to train for war. Poorer freemen who spent most of their hours working would have had fewer opportunities to practice their combat skills. The spear was the most common weapon used by militiamen. An iron spearhead could inflict terrible wounds from a distance, a great tactical advantage. The length of that bad beast. Stick you right in your balls. Balls. Wasn't that already in the church room? But oh, gotta go that. But fuck. I'm going this way then. Out of the way. Those guys have got to climb. God, why is it here? A burh was a fortified town designed to protect nearby villages from enemies. Often found near rivers, burhs were equipped with fighters, barricades, and other means of defence against violent raids. Some burhs were built atop existing Roman walls and fortresses, while others were built from scratch. They became powerful social centres, safe havens where the locals could find protection and security. Warriors may have stabbed their horse. Stabled? Stabbed? Fucking hell. Stab-led the horses within the burh. That made no sense. I was already. I was like, wait, what? so that they could ride swiftly to the defence of surrounding villages. With the horse in the back. The horse in the back. It is likely that the birds had ways to communicate and to warn each other of danger. If a bird such as the one sketched here was under attack, its people might have lit a beacon, a fire that could be seen from great distances to put the other strongholds on high alert. The beacon is lit! Right, where were we? Oh yes. Getting out of here. It's alright, I can't die. I am immortal. No. Pick it up, you fool. Sorry, I'm just checking something. No, 720. Just not got the marks yet. Just double checking my marks for stuff. Hoping I've not failed massively. So far, no. Just plop it here. I'll plop it here.
Brother Elrich, you are returned to me at last.
My face looks like a horse's ass.
And by mine. I was the one who included your safe passage in the terms of Guthrum's surrender.
Then I am grateful to you as well, my lord.
And you have returned with the relic of Ely. I was ready to chase the Danes to recover it, but I see you have the matter well in hand.
With Guthrum's aid, yes.
You speak kindly of him. Even after so many months as his captain? Truly, you exemplify Christ's grace. Now come, we have a baptism to plan.
The baptism will soon begin.
Oh God, how many of these are there? That's like... While legitimising Guthrum's right to rule, Alfred encouraged him to respect his oath. In addition, with Guthrum as a Christian ally in East Anglia, Alfred created a territorial buffer to prevent future Scandinavian raiding parties from heading back up the River Thames into Wessex. However, there was a problem. East Anglia was not afraid... see, this is how tired I am now, and my throat is starting to hurt. Fucking hell. If I was tired before, I'm definitely tired now. However, there was a problem. East Anglia was not Alfred's to give. He had never ruled over nor conquered that independent kingdom, and neither had his ancestors. In other words, Alfred lost no territory by gifting Guthrum a land that was not his. Moreover, he secured his own possessions and allowed his new and indebted ally to stabilise a region that had been in turmoil since the death of its last king, St. Edmund, who was killed by Vikings in 869. The map shows the territorial separation of early medieval Britain before the treaty between Alfred and Guthrum. The green lands were under the control of Alfred, which corresponded to the kings of Mercia and Wessex. In red, there is the D didn't control, so just third place then. No more, please. My throat cannot
That's
take
why I've
it.
chosen the name Adel Stan for you. I trust you agree it is fitting.
Jarl Guthrum, to have you come in peace to our city at last fills my heart with joy.
You seem well, Elrich. Freedom agrees with you.
As a life in the service of Christ will agree with you.
Indeed. Let us delay this happy occasion no longer.
I should take my place amongst them.
Si igitur vis ad vitam ingredi, serva mandatum. Diligus dominum diem tuum ex toto cortu, et ex toto animatua, et ex totement tua, et proximum tuum sicut typsum.
Amen.
Axapi signum crucis tam in front, quam in cord, sum fidem plastium preceptorum, et talis esto moribus, ab templum Deum es possis.
Amen. Amen.
Hooray! Thank Christ. Literally in this case, because he's now going to be a Christian. We should call him Stan of Ethels. Well, we'll get the ball rolling and then we'll leg it as soon as we can. Alfred's legacy.
Escaping the Isle of Ely with the relic, I was terrified. I was raised on a farm, then sent to the monastic school. So I had never seen
Wow!
anything else nor been
Wow, Daddy Elric!
And suddenly, I carried the weight of the souls of all my brothers and sisters in Christ, who had sacrificed themselves so that I might live to protect their sacred relic. It was unbearable. So when I was at my most weak and weary, I turned to my Lord and, as promised, he gave me rest. For that, I will be grateful to the end of my days.
Brother Elrich, I have need of you.
Of course, my king. I serve at your command.
Then follow me at once. I apologize for my coming unannounced, but you'll understand I needed this matter to remain discreet.
No, I'll read this one at least. I suppose. It's believed that the first ealdormen, or class of Anglo-Saxon lords, were members of the kin or family of a chieftain, later a king. The first ealdorman would have been the most powerful and charismatic followers of the chief. He's like, look at me, my sexy tie. In time, ealdormen came to be seen as representatives of royal power. They were members of the Witan, the royal council. Remember the Wittedy Witches? In some cases, the title may have been inherited. A thane or a nobleman of good renown. A thane and nobleman of good renown could also have become an ealdorman via appointment. Each ealdorman ruled a region of variable size, in which, according to the king's will, he could levy a tax or assemble and lead the feud or sort of militia. They're like repeating themselves, don't they? I think it's just double checking in case you've not read anything. These powers, among others, could sometimes lead an ealdorman to exercise a bit more power than he should. A weak king sometimes had to deal with more independent ealdormen before they became a threat to his crown. It's likely that the ealdormen were among the wealthiest members of society. They could have possessed objects of great value, like this gilded belt mount. Ooh, gilded, it's got a little bit of stone on it. Ooh, fancy, fancy. freaking shit. Anyway, we'll leave it there before this drives me mad even further. So, thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
I'm at war. At war with the Danes, yes, but also with the nobles of my realm.
Oh no.
Surely you would not go to war against our fellows?
Not anymore.
I'll wait till he's finished talking.
War I speak of. A war of the minds. And stubborn ones at that.
We have no shortage of stubbornness within the church as well.
These nobles refuse to understand that we must be united if we are to remain victorious over the Danes. And a united front means one person must speak for the many. But they see it as a grab for power, as if giving me the upper hand means undermining their authority. All I
want to know though, if this is not going to give us any extra new ones, I may just continue. Let's have a look. Because I think we've got everything from England, apart from there. Oh, fuck, we might as well just do the story then. If it's just going to be do the story with a few of them, we might as well just keep going. Because then it's just two left, and that'll be fine for me for next time.
It is not me you must convince, my king. Without you, we would already be a faded memory, overwritten by the heathen's bloodshed.
It's our victory over Guthrum and the other Danes has given the Witan misplaced confidence. I cannot let their arrogance be our downfall. We need to be prepared for the next attack and all the ones to come.
What role could I play in convincing them?
You attended my court for many years. You know my heart. And I know you are loyal to our Lord above all others, as do they. They will not listen to me, but they cannot doubt our Lord's will. We need the bishop. Convince him to speak in my favor at the Witan. The other lords will have no choice.
Oh god, we have to deal with the Witan.
I am certain God will aid me in this endeavor.
Treaty with Guthrum. Some years after the Battle of Edington. Oh, that's why he was talking to all the little child monks who were huddled around him like little kids listening to a story. This is a few years afterwards. So, some years after the Battle of Edington and the Truce of Wedmore, a peace treaty was made between the West Saxon King Alfred, representing the Witan Royal Council, and King Guthrum/Athelstan, representing the people of East Anglia. Among other things, the agreement fixed the boundary between the Anglo-Saxon and Scandinavian territories, eventually named the Danelaw. Ah, the Danelaw. It also determined the equivalence of the free men from both sides in terms of the Vergeld, that is, the cost to be paid if a person were killed. Although it stated that hostages were to be exchanged to secure cross-border trade, this treaty did not put an end to Scandinavian raiding activities. Still, it was an important step made by Alfred, for it granted him a respite from attacks. This allowed him to better reorganise even his realm and extend his influence in the neighbouring kingdom of Mercia, which eventually led to the unification of England. Yeah, because he was the first king of all England, wasn't he? Or did he call himself that? I don't really know. Please, there's no more. Jesus, there's fucking loads of these. There's probably just as many as there is in the Assassin's Creed Odyssey Discovery Tour with all their discovery points. That one I'm going to have to plan and think how to structure that properly, because I can't obviously do them all in one video. Because my throat will not thank... If my throat now is anything to go by... This is sometimes why I don't talk very often on some of my streams, because it's either A, nothing funny to say, or clever, or intelligent, or any of those words, nothing good to say, or it's me saving my voice. I feel like I've talked all the way through this, and my throat's starting to do that. And it's not COVID, because I tested yesterday and it was negative, although I probably will test the next week just to be sure. Because I've been having like the blocked nose, and I could have sworn my taste has disappeared as well. Maybe not, I could just be imagining it. Because I've drank this Pepsi and I can taste it very finely. It's because I've just had a trip into London as well, so I'm a bit like, I could have got it anywhere. And I'm going to sneeze. Oh god. The Thanes. Thanes were the companions, retainers of people such as the king, members of the royal kin, ealdormen, or even bishops. It seems that the term Thane related to a broader sense of aristocratic identity. And of course I only know of the Thanes because of Macbeth. Ah, hot potato off the straws. The fact that Latin texts identified them as milites, which meant warriors, offers a good hint at what Thanes usually did in life. Thanes were well trained to fight. They would act as bodyguards in peace or at war, and relatively high quality of their military gear was thus partially explained in their function of society. See, for example, this iron seax, or dagger. Clearly a whole iron, except for the little hilt bit there. But then, iron doesn't... sort of stays, but doesn't quite stay. Depends on the iron. Sometimes it breaks, but that's... if you're looking at an iron sword, that tends to be what we find, is that kind of thing. It's that or they're in pieces, because they crumble. In the West Saxon king Ene's code of law, 7th century to 8th, a thane was usually a landowner. However, thanes who neglected their military service could be punished with a fine. It's fair enough. It's like if you're not getting my services physically, then you're giving them to me monetarily. Makes sense.
This city is a superb example of the burghs I want to build all over Wessex.
Oh yeah, do you mean the ones that your daughter will end up building at Warwick? Which I actually discovered wasn't actually on the site of the castle. It was actually a little bit further upriver.
I've always loved these.
Although that could be wrong, we don't know. There's literally no evidence apart from the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. I think I had to, because one of the things I did, one of my assignments was talking about the historical sort of history of the castle as a site. Ironically, I've got to do something again, but it's more based on what it's like now. But still going to explain the heritage a little bit. And what was it? I found this one. I think I've still got it. I hope I've still got it. If not, I'll have to find it again. And it was about
it's King Alfred.
It was a paper,
King
an actual
Alfred
paper.
Our street. Welcome. Oh, welcome, Lord.
There he is. Think I can ask his Highness
And they
to
kind
fix up
of,
my outhouse?
they sort of basically argued that because we still have example. I think it's Tamworth's one of the examples. I think the other one's. Oh god, I think it's Stoke. I think or something. I don't know. I could be wrong with that one, but. Because we've got examples of other burghs she made, we kind of go, well, if it's in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle and they mention these other ones and they still exist, it's probably most likely it did exist. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, but you know, because I tried to find anything in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, and all it says is, and here at Warwick a burgh was made.
What is it,
oh no, it's that little shit! She won't get up.
Hooray, my battery's low again on this controller, hooray! Happens when you talk so much.
She's at the infirmary. I told her. I said, Mum, you're burning up. But she didn't.
You're burning up, you're on fire!
So I took her hand and we walked to see the sisters. But they say there's nothing they can do. Then I saw you, and I knew you could help.
Touch of the king.
My mum's told me you're close to God.
You are closer than me, according to the very words spoken by our Lord.
Yeah, isn't that what they say? Children are closer to God because they're still pure and innocent. And I'm like, you know, kids aren't pure and innocent; they're evil. Depends on the kid.
I've never seen him up close. Handsome man.
Yes, indeed. He looks like a ruble.
King, have I died, Lord?
No, but if you can get out of my fucking way, you will be.
King Alfred's come to help us. Bless the Lord. We're saved.
Oh my god, stop. Stop it with the bad fucking voice acting that's clearly just Google Translate.
Elrich,
Oh, I can't let it go, it's
your
bad.
healer, have you seen this type of ailment before?
I would have to take a closer look, but I trust our sisters can provide the best
The
care.
sisters cannot do anything. They have American accents, even though this is Anglo-Saxon England.
Am I dreaming?
Shh. Save your strength.
Oh, I can feel myself drifting away.
I will see that your daughter is well taken care of, should the need arise. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious.
God, what agony he must have been in if he had Crohn's disease.
Oh, thank you, my king. Thank you.
And apparently it's not a contracting disease, it's a genetic disease. So he had something wrong with him genetically that allegedly created it. But they don't really know, from what I looked at, they don't really know what causes it. Official accounts paint Alfred the Great's ascension to the throne as a valiant time of hardship and struggle. Historians are now revisiting these documents with a critical eye, since many of them are commissioned by Alfred himself. Soon after Alfred became king, every single Anglo-Saxon kingdom, with the exception of Wessex, was controlled by Scandinavians. Far from being the last bastion of freedom in the kingdom, it now seems likely that Alfred, like everyone else, paid tribute to the Vikings and became a client king. That is, a king who remained in power so long as they pleased their Scandinavian overlords. Becoming a client king was likely a necessity rather than a choice. Alfred was as much a part of the political landscape as anyone else at the time. He was, however, the first to successfully free himself and his people from the constraints imposed by foreign rulers. This land was and still is... this was and still is a feat of worthy respect. Give him that, yeah. This silver penny was minted in the first decade of King Alfred's reign. Today these coins can be worth up to 20,000 British pounds. So if you see one of these and you're in the dirt as you're digging outside today, remember 20,000 fucking British pounds. God, I want to find one now.
I've seen my vision.
That'll take a load of weight off my mind.
Yet we are still in harm's way.
Hell, I'll find like 7 of them.
Approval. We must build as many burhs, our strongholds, as necessary. Spread
Ooh, that'd
across
be
the
nice if I
land.
found a horde.
With each of these
There was something recently where apparently there was a teenager that found a massive... I think they were Roman coins, I think, but they found this massive hoard in a pot or something.
And yet I am being stifled by the very men supposed to...
I think that was in Wessex, actually.
Thanks to our mills, I can
Can't think where it was.
people aren't out of bread.
I don't even know. It might have been Anglo-Saxon. They basically found a shitload of coins. And I was like, you bastards.
To rule than to bake, I'm afraid.
But then if to be fair, I don't go out with metal detectors, so I can't say much. I doubt there'll be much buried around where I live. It'll all be industrial shit rather than anything. Because where I live's not that old. It's like 100 and something years old. Like, yeah, about 100 and... It's nearly 110. Give another 2 years, yeah. So it's 108 years old.
We've reached the bishop's residence. This is where I leave you.
Double checking my maths.
The nobles are waiting.
Even though it's
for
very
me at the
simple
Wizard
maths.
Hall. I'm counting on you, Elrich.
I will get his approval, my lord.
Let's time up
Our
accordingly.
future depends on it.
Convince Bishop Dynewulf. Danewulf. I'll just call him Dennis. How about that? Obviously still has the man with his nipples out.
Brother, I'm looking for the bishop.
What for?
It is a subject I need to discuss with the bishop alone, at once.
Suit yourself. He's over there reading the day's missives.
Christianization of Anglo-Saxons rested largely on the shoulders of the aristocracy, especially kings and queens. Their influence and wealth military might, supported missionaries as they spread the word of God across England. Oh, I wish he'd get off me. No, I'm too busy reading this fascinating book called How to Squat a Rebellious Twat. Fuck. This is how bad it's making my throat. Ugh. The social elite did not contribute to the missionaries purely out of Christian charity. To give aid to the church was to invest in a powerful ally. But even as the church's influence flourished throughout the Anglo-Saxon territories, a lot of power remained under royal authority. For example, bishops, abbots, and abbesses too could be chosen from within the royal entourage. It benefited the king to select the high-ranking members of the clergy, for those whom he appointed would owe him a debt. However, the king's power in these appointments was still limited. The selection process involved negotiation, confrontation, and compromise between church leaders and the throne. So it was like Lord of the Rings. Here is an illustration of King Oswald of Northumbria, a sovereign who greatly supported by the clergy. The church declared him a saint after his death. So why does he sit... Oh, is he meant to be the king underneath? Or is he meant to say, I'm bigger than all the other kings, look how big I am, look at my big crucifix.
Father, your king needs you.
It is customary for people to introduce themselves, young man.
Sorry, I don't give a shit.
You saved our precious relic from the Isle of Ely.
I did! Yes. Where were you?
It was such a long time ago.
Yet here you stand.
It was such a long time ago. It was last Thursday.
King Alfred seeks the Lord's support to implement his laws with the nobles.
Far be it for any man to speak in the name of the Lord. What are these laws King Alfred is pushing?
If he is to protect Wessex against the heathen threat, King Alfred needs the lords to trust his strategies to ensure we will withstand other attacks.
What kind of strategies?
He wants to extend the stronghold system he began with Winchester. He sees these burhs as the best answer against the heathen attacks, a way for every man and woman in the land to seek refuge.
But how can I be sure that I will be helping our Lord and not merely supporting one man's pride?
King Alfred is a man of God. He wishes to unite the kingdoms through common faith in our Lord.
I can't deny that having a pious man at the helm of our kingdom has helped us spread the good word indeed. You have made a convincing case, brother. I believe Alfred is genuine in his intentions. I will discuss this matter with my brothers and come to a decision.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Britain.
My fellow good men, please heed my words.
What more can you possibly have to say?
We won the war. Let us lick our wounds and go home to our wives.
We've won a single battle by the skin of our teeth. We must be ready when the heathens come back, because they will.
Are you suggesting the heathens will return?
Just pay them to leave.
Paying the Danes tribute will only encourage them to stay and ask for more. Can't you see? I'm proposing a system.
Can't you see? We have to
all
kill
times.
them.
An army year-round. Not just for my kingdom's sake, but for all of our sakes.
Oh, your ambitions are very clear, Lord Alfred.
Are they indeed?
We trust you to lead our men.
This is preposterous. Have I not earned your trust?
I mean, it might just be bad audio syncing or balancing or whatever the term is, but
Bishop,
it's just bad.
Please.
It sometimes sounds as if they are indeed using the translate. My dad is a computer.
I have come to voice the Church's support. Our Lord's will is in alignment with Alfred's intentions. If you are men of faith, you will give your assent.
Noble men, what say you? Despite my doubts, I will not go against our Lord's wishes. You have my support.
And ours as well, for now.
Let it be known
For
that
now.
the Witan agreed.
Next time I won't
To prove my
fucking
good
do
faith,
it.
allow me to demonstrate the efficacy of my strongholds. Please follow me.
For God's sake, stop. One of the key weapons Alfred used to rally people to his banner was the idea that Anglo-Saxons formed one people, the gens Anglorum or Anglicane. In other words, the English. During his reign, Alfred promoted the idea of the common people, the English. Proud and faithful members of the church were distinguished from others. The distinction became clearer with the treaty between Alfred and Guthrum in the mid-80s, which referred to an agreement between all the English race, the people which is in East Anglia. In other words, Alfred was enhancing his authority by linking himself to the idea of a Christian people that was set apart from the rest. The map shows the territorial separation of early medieval Britain following the treaty between Alfred and Guthrum. Red is Scandinavian controlled areas, and green is the fucking Mercia and Wessex. No shit. Ah, we're actually playing as the good king.
What have you got in mind?
I'll take them to the beacon. When my watchmen respond, they will see that this system works. Elrich, I am immensely grateful for what you've done for me today.
Of course. I am honored you chose me.
Tell me, how could I ever repay my gratitude?
Well, I must admit, I feel like my purpose is elsewhere.
What do you mean?
I've lived with the Norsemen. I've built bonds with them. Seeing Addleston, Guthrum, baptized, showed me my true wish. I understand their ways, their thinking. The Danes are not ultimately lost. I can still save them, convert them. But I can't do it from Runcorn Abbey.
Your devotion is inspiring. I'll see to it that you be relocated to another minster, Elrich. I have just the one in mind.
Jorvik.
Thank you, my lord.
But I think that's where the next episode thing goes anyway. Because of course they had the Jorvik Trust and all that behind them.
I'll go.
You can't. It's beneath you.
If I won't do it myself,
Shush!
then I cannot expect you
I am
to
the
keep
king,
it.
and I have returned. I returned to the king. Climbing. The beacons are lit.
May this
Rohan
night be
calls
the
for aid.
symbol of a new beginning.
The Gondor calls for
The
aid.
people will rise
And
and take
for
back the land that
bitchy.
is rightfully theirs.
Hooray! Yeah, towards Jorvik. I thought there were turtles in the sky then. It's not, it's badly gifted birds. Golly gee willikers. What a problem that was to solve. Now I am back as the big fat Norseman, that's who will be in the final bits. Big fat Norseman plodding all along. Ah, in Coppergate as well. The place where the Jorvik Viking Centre is. Jorvik.
The sky should remain clear for this afternoon.
It's a shame they did not marry at dawn. Light brings beauty to the fore.
Is she anyone I know?
You can bid her good day the next time you spy a mirror.
Never fear. I'll have plenty of time for beauty while I help Edith prepare. You should not let Trig labor alone too long, lest he fail his husbandly duties at a crucial moment.
What, as he's doing it, he just suddenly thinks, oh, I've got to move the boxes.
And then
it just goes,
the closest kept secret in all our 20 years of marriage. I'm impressed you've been able to hold your tongue.
You surprise me every day. I thought it time I returned the favor, at least once.
You already have. I may have grumbled when you woke me, but the sunrise was especially beautiful.
Tomorrow then, as well?
Let's get through today first.
Maybe we will, but not for now. Another time. So, oh, god damn it, fine, we'll read this one. Just can't let me have one, can you? A great number of diverse groups made up the so-called Great Heathen Army. Did they all come from Scandinavia? Recent research suggests this was not the case. No, some came from... there. Scandinavians could have been accompanied by descendants from Viking settlements in Francia, Freyland, the Scottish Islands and Ireland, lured by the promise of wealth and new social opportunities. The settlers come from both common folk and aristocracy, but all of them shared the hope of building a new life. Women were certainly present. Some travelled independently, while others followed and supported their families or households on their journey. Like everyone else, women put their shoulders to the wheel to build a new life in Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. The map illustrates the alleged origin of the vast majority of Nordic settlers. Turquoise represents Danish, in some sense the Frisian movements of population. The blue arrows correspond to Norwegian journeys. Each letter corresponds to the region. Norway, Denmark, Frisia, England, Pitland, Ireland, Kingdom of Dublin. The town of Jorvik is identified by the number 1. Well, I didn't show that off, did I? Yeah. It's why anyone of descent from Ireland or Scotland have... and anyone from the north, actually, and from Normandy, the Francher area, do have Viking ancestry. I mean, I'm a bit Irish from my nan's side, so I've got a little bit of it. She's also from the north, so bit of both. But yeah, kind of cute. But then apparently from my father's side, it's all dirty English. So it's like, yeah, it's like Anglo-Saxon. Actually, I wouldn't mind that either. I'm just one that doesn't believe that there's such a thing as pure English. There is not such a thing at all. Anyway, we'll end that here. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.